Ding dong, the bell went, I opened the door and bouch! In came like 20, 30 policemen, it was like a blue blur. Freddie Foreman said that my dad was, once upon a time, was sort of the best dressed man in London. He was the epitome of cool. Unfortunately, Gordon Goody dyed his hair dark and put on a pair of glasses and he got arrested. Someone thought he was my dad. Saying that Prince Andrew is going to be on board this ship, blah, blah, blah. But I knocked him flat on his back, actually, but that's another story. Really? They make England look good. They're not inbred like all the other royals.
I still fly my Union Jack, and if anybody doesn't like it,
they want to use that track that had been on an album that had been out 2 years, hadn't really made much noise. And so, of course, it was like, yeah, fucking...
I mean, I wrote to Jim, we'll fix it for
He'd have broken it for you, mate.
You know what I
mean? now then. Yeah. Hideous, man. Whereas his brother, Charlie, who I knew, who was a lovely guy. Andrew, it's all going to come out soon, mate.
My name is Terry Stone, and today we've got an unbelievable guest. I'm sure you've all heard the lyrics, "Gonna get yourself a gun," and thought, what a fucking cool song. Who would have known? That's my mate's band, Alabama 3, from Brixton. And he's also got connections in the art world and the underworld. His dad was Bruce Reynolds, the Great Train Robber. So please put your hands together and a big warm welcome for Mr. Nick Reynolds. He's in the house.
Thank you, Tel. That was a nice intro, mate.
Honestly, mate, I'm just glad that we met when we did, and we've sort of known each other for, it's got to be 30 years.
Well, it's got to be. I first met you with DC on, it was some TV programme
Hell to pay, wasn't it?
We were doing. No, it was before that despicable movie. No, it was some TV show.
That was my big break in Hollywood.
Your big break, I know.
I went to Cricklewood afterwards.
Actually, I'm even in it. I think I'm on the phone for 5 minutes going, all right, Dave, I'm on it, mate,
Because your dad was in it as well, wasn't he?
Was he?
I'm sure Bruce was in it. I'm sure he was all in it.
I'm sure that, yeah, probably Dave just turned around and went, here, Bruce, wave at the camera with you, and he didn't even know what it was for. And he's like, oh, you're in this movie, mate. But no, it was a TV show that we were doing, like a talk show. And it was all about the time when all these villains were coming out of prison and they're all writing books. And
was it Cons to Icons?
No, that was my exhibition.
Yeah.
But Dave was up there because his book had come out, and he was being interviewed by this guy. You would know him, but I can't think of him. His name off the top of my head, and it got a bit airy actually. But I remember Dave introduced himself to me and said, "Hello, my name's Dave Courtney. Well, you're doing this exhibition with all these famous criminals and everything. How much money can I give you? I want to be in it. I want to be in your thing." And I remember you because he gave me the poster. That's when you two were still clubbing and you were doing doing stuff down. I think, was it the Fridge or something?
I'll tell you what it was. It was probably the Scene magazine, because he used to write a column for my Scene magazine called Dodgy Dave's Rave Page.
Right, but was it Terry Turbo and Courtney produced? But didn't you do like certain nights down their Fridge or the Electric together, promotions?
No. I think that might have been. I can't remember what it was about.
Maybe he was piggybacking something of yours, like DC like to do, and went, oh, I'm doing this. Do
you know what? He used to say to people that he was my business partner in the raves.
But he told me that too.
Yeah, but he wasn't. But he was. But look,
we could go on for Daves and Daves about
Daves
Dave.
and Daves.
Couldn't we? I mean, what a character.
Do you know what? God rest his soul. I mean, he's a funny guy. He gave me my first acting role in Hell to Pay. As I said, I went all the way to Cricklewood, so thanks, Dave. But genuinely, like, I knew it. I met him in the club scene. I was putting on events. He used to come to our events, and we become really good mates. He introduced me to all the guys, and I made some great contacts through Dave. Obviously, I met you.
Yeah.
So we were just good mates. But when he started writing the books. And he put some stuff in the books that wasn't true about me. That's when I sort of said to him, look, Dave, I've got to distance myself from you now, because what I'm doing is legal and above board and I pay tax. So, we can't, have an associate.
Yeah, but as for, stuff in his book being true, you know what they always says, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. I mean, I'll tell you, the funny thing is when he found out I was doing this exhibition, Cons to Icons, which meant I was casting the heads.
Nick, how much did he pay you?
Yeah, well, this is what I'm going to say. Come up to me, I want to be in your exhibition, because I was casting the heads of all of the top, plaster over the head, straws up the nose, and it was like a kind of analogous to a fingerprint, I thought. So I was casting all the heads of these very famous 60s villains, and he wanted to be part of it. And at the time, I was like, I don't know who you are, and you don't have any form, stuff like that. But the thing is the exhibition was called Cons to Icons, and it was really exploring how people that have been vilified by the media on one hand were then paradoxically being fated on the celebrity circuit. And me growing up with my old man being a villain, where it was in the times, it was kind of frowned upon. I won't say I was ashamed, but I kept quiet about it because I wouldn't have had the response that I ended up getting later in the 90s, when it was almost like having a rock star for a dad. Everything kind of changed when Lenny McLean come out with his book, and then they all started coming out. But the thing about Dave, what I will say to him, Virgin Publishing was on its arse till he come along, and he basically kept them going. His books, he was a bestseller for him. And my criteria for getting in this exhibition, it's called Cons to Icons. It was about how the media had turned you from someone relatively obscure into like a household name, into an icon. Excuse me. And the thing that Dave was doing, most villains don't go out there and fucking give it all away. But he was out there, talk shows, this, that. He had his one-man show and everything. And
he was a celebrity gangster, wasn't he?
Yeah, he became, there shouldn't even be such a fucking thing. It's an anathema. How can you have a celebrity gangster? But there he was. And as a result, people like Freddie Foreman and all the old faces are getting a little bit miffed, going, hold on a minute, who's this joker? And why is he all in the papers and everything? And he's coming out, and they could see that they were probably being overshadowed and slightly forgotten about. And so he helped raise their profile as well.
Did they get upset when they walked into the thing and it was just his bust at the front, and they were like, "What's he doing there?"
Well, I know what
he paid the most. What you should have done is come round to me and say, "Look, guys, I'm charging now."
Well, actually, what happened? I had a massive falling out with Mad Frank because I did him in a straitjacket. And when he found out Courtney was going to be in it, he rang me up and he went, I don't want to be in your exhibition if he's going to be there. And I was like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Frank, but, he's in. I'm taking him in. I said, because he's the modern day. He said, basically, the life he's living and being this celebrity gangster, he is becoming exactly what my title is, Cons to Icons. You guys, you've written a few books here and there, but... he's out there plugging it, pushing it, claiming it. He's in the public eye, and you guys aren't so much. So he illustrates my point more than anyone else. It ain't about who's done the most bird, who's done the most crime, who nicked the most money. It's who's on the tip of household tongues because of the graft they're doing. And he's out there grafted more than you lot, and so he fits my thing perfectly.
One thing I wanted to ask you about the Cons to Icons exhibition you did, Nick, was...
I know, but when you said that Dave was in the front, he wasn't. Everyone had the ump about it. So I put him in the toilet. There's a little annex to the main room of the gallery, and there was a little entrance for the ladies'
That was the TARDIS, right?
So, yeah, the TARDIS. So I had him in there. I had him in the little annex where the ladies' toilet was, which he couldn't complain, but
that
at
is
least
funny.
he was in
and
it.
I suppose that pacified Frankie. He was like, well, as long as he's in the ladies' toilets, that's fine.
I got him in the ladies. I got him in the little separate bit in the ladies' loo. Yeah.
But one question I had for you on that, obviously, a lot of people may or may not have known about it or seen it or experienced it. Is it online where people can have a look at the actual work?
Do you know what? The thing is, when I did that, the internet was kind of pretty much in its infancy. So there's not an awful lot there. I think if you Google Nick Reynolds sculptor, I think the ones of Ronnie Biggs, my dad, and Mad Frank comes up.
So who was in the actual exhibition? There was Dave in the toilet.
There was Dave in the carsy. Mad Frank in the straitjacket, Freddie Foreman, who's my godfather, my dad, Ronnie Biggs, George Taters Chatham, who The Guardian had called the thief of the century, who my dad described as a one-man crime wave, or the Attila the Hun of the pillaging game. The Guardian reckoned he'd stolen and spunked away more than 100 million in his lifetime. He broke into the V&A and stole Wellington swords and broke them up for scrap and sold them. I mean, he was a terrible gambler. He'd be having a game of cards and he'd lost hundreds of thousands, and he'd take his watch off and go, "I'll be back in a minute." And he'd go up somewhere and rob something and then come back and go, "There you go," and be back in the game. And he was still active, even until his 80s. But he was my dad's mentor, and he was the guy who got my dad into crime. So I got him, but he was the first dead person that I did, because by the time I got to him and tracked him down, he'd only just died. And that's another story, how I got into death mask, but that's later on.
Did you have to dig him up, or?
No.
I don't know.
No, he was in
when
the morgue.
you say death mask, he's already dead. I think you'd be digging him up.
Lucky. He was in the morgue. He was in the morgue, luckily, and it was before they buried him. I rang his sister up, and she was like, "Who are you? What? What? It sounds horrible. You want to do what with my brother?" And anyway, I said, "Here's my number if you change your mind." She thought it was all a bit morbid. I said, "I've got to cover his face and all this." But anyway, she rang me up. She said, "I've just gone to go and see George." And he was known as being quite a grumpy guy. He had Taters Chatham, they called him, because he was always saying, "It's bloody taters in here." He was always
That's probably
cold.
where that come from, right?
Yeah, it was he was he was quite a grumpy old geezer. And anyway, she went to go and see him, and she rang me up and she goes, "I've just come back from the morgue and I can't believe it. He's smiling. He must have found his peace with God, so you have my permission to mould his face." And I didn't tell her it's because he was quite a chubby geezer, and when you're laying down, it's the gravity kind of pulls your mouth into a bit of a death rictus, if you like, So, if be for the grace of God, I thought, well, there you go. So, yeah, he was the first death mask I did. Who else was in that exhibition?
Is it become a thing now, Nick, that like when people die, they want to have a death mask, and then?
Yeah, I've done over 100 now, but they tend to be famous people or politicians or actors or stuff like that.
When you do a death mask, is it like a head? Or is it more like just a mask that you can stick on?
It really depends. I mean, traditionally, most death masks, which you could say it was in the Victorian era, just pre-photography, when death masks producing sort of reached its zenith. It was the golden age. But photography, but the Victorians were obsessed with death because mortality rates were really high then. So anyone who could afford one would get a death mask made. It's called a memento mori, and as I said, that got replaced with photographs and a lot cheaper.
Death mask sounds a lot better, doesn't it?
Death mask, yeah. But for me, there's something sort of magical and almost spiritual and uncanny about them, because it's almost as if, like, the last person's breath is frozen into a sort of a facsimile of their life, and when you're kind of when you're actually making the mould of the dead person, it's almost as something like the part of the mystery of death transfers into the finished thing. So when you're looking at it, it's got something about it. Some of them creep people out, but the fact that it was actually, it's the final portrait. It's them. It's almost the essence of them. And the Greeks and the Romans used to believe in something called animism, and that is if you made a statue of a god or something like that, through prayers, incantations, or wishful thinking, you could summon that entity into this form, and they believed in that. You could talk to a statue of a god, and it's like, even do it in Christian churches. They think that Jesus can hear them when he's on the cross.
Have you tried that with any of your death masks?
What? Yeah. They think that.
Had a chat back to you or come back?
All the time. Unless I'm hearing things in my...
It only happens at 3 a.m. Mate,
I've got about 50 in my flat. Dead people talk to me all the time. I've got used to it.
So you're like that fucking kid in I can't remember what the film is, where he goes, "I see dead people, but you hear dead people."
Right. I see them. I'm surrounded by them, mate.
Sixth Sense.
I spend half my life in the morgue. So in the old days, they'd be like that, because they'd have their mouth wide open, because they'd get to them just after they died. And when you die, your mouth, you're like that. So they would tie a rag around there to close the mouth, and that rag would be the demarcation point. So all old death masks are just that little bit. That's why you only see that bit. But by the time I get to them, they've been embalmed. And for those who don't know, they either super glue the mouth closed or they stitch the mouth shut. So, you don't just see when you go to visit your dead one.
I mean, that's a fucked up job, isn't it? Sewing up dead people's mouths. I mean,
yeah.
You don't see that advertised in the job centre, do you?
No, but the funny thing is that, when you go to a morgue or a funeral parlour or funeral directors, whatever you want to call them, they still have that very kind of austere Victorian kind of gravitas about them, and it's all very, and you all think that they're all like, and really kind of grim and gloomy, but behind the scenes, they're some of the funniest people I've ever worked with, and I think that's got to be something about once you're like looking and dealing with death all the time.
Gallows humour.
Gallows humour. Yeah, it's just like when I was down the Falklands. Like there's one minute you think you're going to die. And then you pass through a thing where it's almost like, well, there's nothing I can do about it.
What was you doing at the Falklands? Was you in the army?
No, I was in the Navy.
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah, I was a diver. I was down there. I got my medal, mate. Yeah, I was on the Hermes, the flagship. So basically, we got bombed twice a day by the RG Air Force, and we were the target if they'd sunk my ship. That would have been game over, mate.
This just gets better and better, Nick. So you're a veteran as well.
I'm indeed so. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, what was the calling for? I mean, maybe what we should do is.
What was the calling? Quite easy. All my mates were going to prison.
You know what? I'll go to the Navy. I'll go and do.
I just wanted to escape. I'd grown up all my life. 5 years on the run with my dad, and that had left. Oh, my flies are undone.
You don't want to be flying low on here, mate.
I know. So I'm surprised you didn't notice, Tony. Some of your flies are done. Only a cocksucker would notice that. You can edit that bit out.
No, we'll leave it in.
Leave it in, leave it out, leave it in, leave it out. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Sorry, what was the question?
But what I was going to say is if we rewind a bit, because I'm sure all our viewers and our listeners would be really interested in hearing what it was like being born into a family where your dad is one of the most notorious criminals in England, and he was, the brains behind the Great Train Robbery, which was one of the biggest heists, robberies, probably in British history.
Yeah, well, it's still the biggest train robbery ever. And the thing is, when the early bird satellite went up in 66, I think it was, Telstar, Interpol got together. This was like science fiction for the age, but Interpol got together, and with all the various different police forces in the world, they drew up a list of the 10 world's most wanted criminals, and my dad was one of those 10. So it wasn't just England; it was the whole world. Wow. And beamed all across the world on satellite as well, which was unheard of in those days.
Can you remember what number he was, or he was in the top 10?
He was in the top. Well, they didn't really do it by a numbering thing. Then they just had I don't know what order it was in. It was just names. Most of them were like foreign guys I've never even heard of. But the funny thing is, we were out in Mexico at the time, and they'd showed it on a Sunday morning, and. Luckily, that we were living with the top 5% of Mexico at the time, which meant Saturday night was a heavy, heavy night out. And of course, everyone's dead to the world on a Sunday morning. So this thing was broadcast about 8:30 on a Sunday morning. And so anyone who he knew wouldn't have recognised him. Plus, by that time, he didn't look anything at all like the wanted picture, which the old, the people who used to see him, he was very pale and got his horn-rimmed glasses on. He looked very different then.
What was his? Because people. I mean, I've read his book, and I remember meeting him probably around the same time as I met you.
Yeah, you met him a few times.
And he always struck me as always being very polite. And if you didn't know who he was, and he didn't say who he was, he could have easily passed off as a lawyer or an accountant, couldn't he?
Oh, without doubt. I mean, the funny thing is the Archbishop of Canterbury used to visit my old man in prison. And
What, Justin Welby? Or was it the one before?
Runcie, wasn't it? The one before him, maybe. And afterwards, he would have a chat with the prison governor, you know, and say, "Oh, such a terrible waste of a man," you know.
He should be robbing trains.
He could have. No, he could have been. He could have been anything he turned his hand to. And my dad always, you know, ever the romantic, always described himself as an artist who kind of fell on the wrong canvas. But he really wanted to be a writer. You know, he wanted to be the next Hemingway. You know, he wanted to lead that life of adventure, go running off with some rebel cause and stuff like that. You know, and he was very left wing. My granddad was a shop steward. He'd been at Ford's as a metal pourer for 27 years, and he ended up being on the council of Dagenham. Yeah.
And I mean, when your dad actually did did he ever tell you how he actually got into that world? Because like you said, he wanted to be a writer.
Yeah, but he started off working for a newspaper, just as a kind of like a bike courier, dropping bits and pieces off and stuff like that. And I think, you know, you could see the pecking order, and he could work out how many desks were in front of him, how long it would be before he got to where he wanted to be. He thought, you know, sod that. And then he met this guy, George Taters Chatham, who showed him there was other ways to make a living.
He was a Darth Vader character. Come to the dark side, Bruce.
Come to the dark side, Bruce. And the funny thing is my old man had a bit of a falling out with the law during the war, where he got into an altercation with a couple of policemen for riding a bicycle without a light on it, and they made the mistake of kicking my dad's bike. So he indignantly kicked the copper back, as you do.
Did he say, "How'd you fucking like it?"
And he got the kicking of his life. Got the kicking of his life for it, and from that moment on, the Germans weren't the enemy. You know, it was the old Bill.
He was walking around London going, "Fuck the police."
The police, exactly, yeah.
And I suppose then when old Taters turns up, he probably thought, actually, fuck it, you know, I don't want to work in this.
Yeah, but it started off really, really low, you know, just like robbing cigarette machines and stuff like that. Then it got into breaking windows and nicking furs. There was big money in furs in them days.
Now you get red paint thrown over you, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, even with the money now, the banks and stuff like that. You know.
Yeah,
but what people don't realise is if you had enough front and you had the minerals to do it, it was so easy back then, really. You know, I mean, you break into some place like that and a copper sees you, he blows his whistle and goes, "Stop!"
Right.
And you go, "Fuck you," and off you run, you know, and the copper's got to run after you.
Yeah, because this was obviously in the days where there was no CCTV, no mobile phones.
No CCTVs, and that's it. No radio. You know, they didn't even have radios properly then. You know, they had to run to a police box and make a telephone call.
Right.
So, and also, it was different times, really. There was a very, very, very fine line between the villains and the police.
Right.
Some of the robberies that my dad did were actually put up by policemen.
Wow.
It was something like, we got this right horrible in the area. We've been trying to get him for ages. He's a right nasty piece of work, and he's making us look really, really bad. He's got X amount of dough in the safe, X amount of money under the bed. We want you to go in there, clear him out, and give us 10%.
Right.
And you know, as we know, back in those days, not everyone, but particularly the flying squad, known as the Dirty Tricks Brigade, they would bang at it. You know,
10% commission, or was it a commission or a finder's fee?
Well, a bit of both, maybe. But that's how it was back then. You know,
I mean, if you was a criminal then, and you know, and I suppose in a way, if you were having that chat with a flying squad or the police, whoever it was, then obviously you're kind of getting a little bit of immunity in you as well. So they're going to sort of turn a blind eye.
But they were they were kind of almost on sort of like friendly kind of terms, you know. And the thing is that, you know, if you think about the Star in Belgravia, police and villains used to drink shoulder to shoulder there and have a joke and wind up and go, I got my eye on you, da 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 da, and be like, yeah, whatever, you know, good luck.
Do you want your fucking 10% or not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the funny thing, you know, there was the fingerprint expert at the time, and was a guy called Maurice Ray. He was a fingerprint expert for Scotland Yard.
Right.
And he was in the habit, he'd always like buy a villain a drink. And of course, once he'd be waiting for you to go for a pee, and he'd switch glasses and have that in his pocket. He's got your print in his collection, then, you know, which can be used later on, you know, should they need it for something.
Guy. So this is what happens when you accept drinks in the pub from a police officer. You don't know what they do.
Wear rubber gloves.
You know, your dad, like you said, he was getting the furs. I always like pranking the fur protesters. So if I ever see him outside a shop and they're all going, you know, ban the fur and all that, I always walk up to them and say, excuse me, do they sell fur coats in here? I just love winding them up. And my missus always just goes, oh, no, you know, you're going to get paint front over you or attacked by these people. I said, great, bring it on. You know what I mean?
Nice beaver.
But yeah, I mean, even people, when you watched the old mob movies like Goodfellas, you know, they were nicking fur coats, weren't they? They were buying fur coats. I mean, fur coats in the 60s, 70s, but even today are a sign of wealth. And you know,
they were.
It's like you made it if you had a fur coat on, right?
My old man and a guy he was Billy Hill's right hand man. Going back that far, a guy called Bobby McHugh.
Right.
Both him and my old man nicked a fur coat to order for Ronnie Corbett, no less, who wanted it to impress his girlfriend.
You dog.
Ronnie Corbett, you wascal.
See, you think these celebrities are all clean cut and all that, and they're buying stolen property. They're right.
Everyone loves a bit of
swag
if they think it's
funding organised crime. These people.
Yes, terrible.
That is so funny. So how did your dad meet Ronnie Corbett? I mean, it's just bizarre.
I don't know, mate. I mean, back in those days, everyone rubbed circles with each other. Right. There was only X amount of, you know, top-notch drinking clubs and places like that you would go to, and you know, villains of the day, if they were successful, were rubbing shoulders, all the celebrities, because as you know, you know, people are fascinated by those who walk on the other side of the law, you know, as you know yourself,
right.
And celebrities and actors who spend half their life pretending to be something they're not. They love hanging out with gangsters and villains and things like that. So I mean, you've only got to look at the clientele that you know, the Craze had at their places, George Raft and stuff like that. And Babs Windsor, a lovely lady. Yeah. But they were glamorized back in the day, you know. And if you think about it, you know, I find it quite hard to believe how glamorized, say, for example, the Craze were. You know, I mean, I think they're sort of that they've been completely sort of overblown in criminal history. They were just a couple of gay boys who loved their mum, who terrorised a very small part of London, where how they kind of got really big was the fact that Ronnie was supplying young boys to Lord Boothby. It was all part of that Dolphin Square thing, and Jimmy Savile and all of that. You know,
no one.
That's how they got away with murder, literally up until it was too much. You know,
Ron and Jimmy were like that, weren't they?
Yeah, of course they were.
Do you know what? Genuinely though, like when you look over, and it shocks me because I grew up in the 70s, and you know, Gary Glitter, Jimmy Savile, all these characters I grew up with. Do you know what I mean? And I looked at them, and my only I mean, I wrote to Jim will fix it to fix it for me.
I know you're gutted he never fixed it for you.
Glad he didn't
broken it for you,
you know
mate.
what I mean?
Bend over, Terry, my son. Now then, jingle, jangle.
But the thing is, do you know what? There was a documentary about him on Netflix, and I watched it. And when you watch it now as an adult, right, he's basically telling everybody I'm a fucking nonce and I'm doing all this stuff, right? And he's not hiding it. It's in plain sight. Yeah. He's admitting to it. Oh, you know what? I told you about that. I'll be going to jail forever. And you're just thinking, and everyone's going, oh, look, Jim, he's so funny. But he was just literally just going,
But he was bulletproof, wasn't he? I mean, that's how Thatcher controlled her government. You know, when she came in, they were all the old guard.
But don't you think, though,
and they were all into young boys. And, you know, Savile was supplying Edward Heath, you know, allegedly. Right. Getting young boys to Edward Heath and stuff like that. That's how she controlled her cabinet. She says, I've got filth on all of you lot, so you're my bitches now. Right. And that's how she controlled her cabinet. Wow. Allegedly.
Didn't even know. This is all news to me. It's all news to me. But I do know that there was obviously those allegations about, and obviously back in the 60s, you know, obviously if you was homosexual, it was, you know, I think it was illegal.
It was.
And it was, you know,
didn't stop half the judges and Lord Mountbatten and all the others that were all that way inclined. It was the judiciary.
Look, there's been gay people probably since the birth of you know, Jesus Christ, right?
He was probably gay,
right?
But well, you never had a wife, did he, or a woman? So who knows? He might have been gay.
I don't know. I mean, was he born after somebody ate an apple, or was that somebody else? I lose track of it all.
Come on, mate. When did you last read the Bible?
I've read it, but it was a long time ago.
That was Adam and Eve, mate.
Adam and Eve. Yeah, but what happened?
Would you Adam and Eve it? But
But you know, for me, I've always had that view that if that's how you are, that's how you are. Do you know what I mean? Right. But obviously, back then it was people. Yeah, if you wouldn't openly say you was gay because you know people would be like, you know, it was a little bit like when the AIDS epidemic came along, and if someone said they were gay, people would like get up and leave and think they're going to catch it.
It became called the disease, didn't it? And it made everyone really kind of paranoid.
The homo virus, they called it.
That's the one, whatever. Yeah.
But it was to me, it was like, you know, I mean, some people said that it was introduced into, you know, I mean, whatever, who knows? But it came out of nowhere,
but they do know it was a experiment in Africa that the CIA were messing around and they were injecting local tribes people with the bloody stuff.
Was they injecting anybody, or were they just like looking for the batty men and they were doing it to them?
No, they rejected everyone. They were just
so because I remember when it first happened, and it came out. It was literally, it was definitely like, you know, if you're a homosexual, you could have AIDS, so you got to have an AIDS test, and it was a big thing about it. So I didn't know whether it was just in the gay community or whether it was spread out.
No, it sounds to me like it did spread out. The only thing was, it was they found out that transmitted wise, it was easier for gays to get it through the type of sex they indulged in, as opposed to the type of sex heterosexual. So it was easily spread through gay sex as opposed to heterosexual sex.
But lots of people that were heterosexual did catch it, didn't they, as well?
Yeah, you could get it.
Because I remember,
but it was much. You know, the thing is that traditionally, gays were and are a lot more sexually active than heterosexuals. I mean, I don't know if that's the case now, but it certainly was in the day. You know, you could be a gay guy walking a bar, just wink at someone, and you'd be in the carsy with them, and you could do it maybe 10, 20 times a night. I had gay guys, I see them the next day when I'm working with them, you know. I'm going, you look like shit, mate. Went, yeah, I had about 20 geezers last night. I think, really bloody hell. I can't even imagine having it with half a dozen birds. 20? You're kidding. So that was part of the gay culture, very, very promiscuous. You know, you didn't have to buy them a bunch of roses and take them out for dinner or anything like that. They just give you a wink and you're in there, you know, bingo. So I think it was the prevalence that spread it. and the nature
wish,
of the sex.
The only thing I wish is that was the other way round. You walk into a bar, you look at a girl, you wink at her, and she's like, right, let's go. You know, let's shortcut the meal and the flowers.
Terry, you might say that, but I remember once I was in a pop band in the 90s before I joined Alabama
you had him
3.
queuing up, Nick, didn't you?
And I was talking to Damon Albarn when I found out, because he was on the same record label, and I said, hey, you're really big in Japan, aren't you? And he went, yeah. I said, we're going out there, and we got a big tour in Japan. And I said, what's it like? He went, first time you're out there, he goes, you'll love it. He goes, there's so many women and they're throwing themselves at you. So I said, that sounds like a dream come true. He goes, but after a while you get fed up with it and you end up being too scared to leave your hotel room. And I thought, what? You pussy. Anyway, basically we turn up, there's 150 girls camping in the lobby of our hotel. You go out, do a record signing or something, come back, and somehow there'd be 5 girls in your bed. They bribe the maid to let you in and stuff like that.
What did they say to you? Did they speak English?
None of them spoke English, no. They just wanted to take a picture, wanted a good time. They were like professional groupies. And I had one...
Would you say that's a perk of being in the band?
Oh, definitely. But I had one girl didn't speak a word of Japanese, and every day we cried, said goodbye, and we get on the bullet train to the next town, the next city. As I'm checking in the hotel, there she is. Yet she'd booked her own room, and the rooms weren't cheap. And even though I had a room, and this went on for a week. But it got like that after a while, and I really understood what he said. It's like every time you step out, you're just totally being hounded. And I thought, my God, this only happened to me kind of like once in my life. And it gave you some kind of insight into what it must have been like to be in the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. And it's overwhelming. You can't go anywhere. Someone would come up, take your picture, and then an hour later, I don't know how they would find you. They'd have it developed, and then wanted you to sign it. It's like their little network. They knew exactly where you were. You walked into a record shop, and as if by magic, your record would suddenly start playing.
It must be hard if you're that famous to actually be able to have a relationship and actually know how to, because it's like anything. Like if you made millions and millions of pounds. Yeah. You take money for granted because you just think it's always going to be there. If you've got millions and millions of girls, it must be very difficult to go, actually, I want to just be with one. Do you know what I mean? Because you're getting tempted every day, every night, 365 days a year. And obviously back then, there was no social media. But can you imagine it now?
Well, the thing is
stalked,
I mean, it's not like it used to be now, because back in the old days, you could have like untold girls. They'd jump on the tour bus and they could go with you for a few days, and then you eject them and grab another lot. You can't do that anymore.
That Me Too lot will be after you.
Yeah,
be after you.
Hashtag Me Too, please. Yeah, you're only allowed to have as many people that are insured for the bunks on the bus now. Right. So that's kind of killed all that.
Oh, and the fun's been taken out of it.
No, and worse than that, you used to do a gig in the venue, and the bar will be open another couple of hours, so you could go backstage, quickly get changed, and go out and mingle with your fans or whatever and stuff like that. But nowadays, all of the venues have been all taken over by O2s. They're all very homogenised and similar. And what happens, the moment you finish, they shut down, kick everyone out, and then they get a disco crowd in. Right. And it's DJs. So by the time you've come out your dressing room, there's a whole new crowd of teenagers. Your fans, everyone, they've all fucked off. The pub's shut at 11 and it's end of. Right. So that's kind of killed a lot of that thing. But, it's good fun. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now anyway, but I'm saying when you're younger, it's a hell of a lot of fun. Right. But ultimately, it's kind of quite hollow after a while. There's not a lot of love involved, and I'm not putting down groupies. Most people don't want to settle down with a groupie.
But that's what I meant when I was saying it must be hard to actually get a woman, because you've got all this temptation all the time. But then also on the other one, when you do meet someone, you're like, is this another groupie? Are you after my money? Do you actually want to be with me?
Yeah. What is it that you like?
And then all of a sudden,
exactly.
it's like every time you meet someone, you talk yourself out of the relationship. So. I mean, I've never
especially in the days of Facebook now, anything you do, click, 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 click. Who's that? Who's that?
Well, it's actually quite funny. I was at, I remember going to a event, and it was like a rap party for a film, and the club had invited a load of there was a TV thing. I think it's still going now called Babe Station,
Right.
where there's these like semi-naked girls and they're on phones, so you can and you can pay. It's like a premium rate thing. You ring them up and then they go, "Oh hi, call me," and all that, and then you have a conversation with them.
Are they still doing that?
I don't know if they. I'm pretty sure it's still on, but that was a big thing. I think it was like in the 2000s it started.
Yeah, well, in the 90s, it was those telephone lines, and you ring up, and then it's just, you get charged a fortune. And
Maybe it was the 90s, but it was 90s or the 2000s. And I remember, like, my mate was there, and he said to me, and they all come up, we can have a picture and all that, blah, blah, I love the film. You're great in foot soldiers and all this. And I'm like, yeah, amazing. But I was always a little bit sort of have a picture, but I was a bit standoffish. And my mate goes to me, he goes, why are you being all fucking standoffish? These girls like you. I said, listen, mate. I said, I've got a fucking wife and I've got kids, right? So I said, if I've got some girl with her
tells 1,000 lies.
Hanging out, all leaning all over me, going like that, and I'm all like that with her, my missus gonna get the ump, just like I get the ump if it was my missus with somebody, right? So I said, that's why I don't do any pictures. So he's then having pictures with the girls fucking about, and one of them took a shine to him, right? So there's all pictures of him like on the stairs with this bird. She's doing that behind him. She's lifted her top up. She's all over him. He's all over her. Right. And there's someone going around going snap, 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 snap. And the next day, obviously, and bear in mind, I don't think Instagram was a big thing then, but it was mainly Facebook. It was all over Facebook. And his pictures with his bird, right? And he's obviously with somebody, right? So he's ringing me up going, get the fucking pictures off Facebook. Yeah. My missus has seen them. I'm going, they're not my pictures. They're not my pictures. Yeah. I told you not to have any pictures.
Exactly.
What part of don't have any pictures? You know what I mean?
Put yourself in the frame. A lesson to be learned there.
But you and also people do stitch people up. So if you're somebody, I'm a nobody. But if you were somebody like fucking, I don't know, Tom Cruise or whatever.
And all the time you got to be so suspicious.
Some bird comes up to you and goes, "Oh, come have a picture."
You wouldn't trust anyone,
right?
Would
And then
you?
you go, "All right, have a picture." She could be stood there with a fucking little fucking tray with some cocaine on it and go like that. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're fucked.
Or just when he goes, you go and stick a tongue in you or anything, put a hand on your bullocks, whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, what is going on?
As I said, every picture tells 1,000 lies, and then you got to explain it,
They get 10 grand from whoever they sold the picture, but then people's lives are fucked up.
We're in the wrong game, aren't we?
We are. We should set up a PR agency.
Do ourselves up as a couple of nice-looking birds and photo bombing and charging and blackmailing them.
We could be Teresa and Nicola. How about
sounds
that?
Nice, love. I'm up for some of that. What the fuck are we talking about, Terry?
No, we have gone off on a tangent, but we're going to go back in a minute, right?
You've been tangented.
So obviously we were talking about your dad and obviously he was working with these people. So was he really with a certain crime person or family, or was he literally his own guy? So he was known for like hoisting and stuff.
No, he basically, as I said, he started off with George Tatus Chatham, who one of his big jobs, which was the biggest job actually before the Great Train Robbery, and that was the 1952 East Castle mail van raid.
Remember it well.
Which was in East Castle Street, and that was a Billy Hill job. And that was my Uncle Terry was involved in that with George Tatus Chatham. And in fact, that was the first robbery that kind of marked, has gone down in history as sort of like proper organised crime, and actually got the personal attention of Winston Churchill, who thought, like, hello, this is unusual. What's happening here? We're seeing a whole new, different pattern of crimes going on. Obviously,
that was a post office, wasn't it?
And that was a mail van.
Mail vans, yeah.
It was a mail van on East Coast. And I think it had, oh God, it's been a while since I read about this, but it might have had like 250 grand on it, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, that's probably like 3 or 4 million now, wasn't it?
Yeah, easy. And so the guy that, did I say was my Uncle Terry, became my uncle by proxy. But he was a young lad, red-faced terrier they called him, and he was a sort of like unofficial king of Fulham. He was a right heavy and a bit of a player. And he was very lucky as well, lucky Terry they used to call him. And so so my dad had a little firm going with Tatus Chatham and Terry. And then he went off and did his own thing, because he was a bit of a one-man band, really, George Tatus Chatham. So my dad got a little firm together with him and Terry, and people that Terry had known, you know, that were in the similar sort of business, and they kind of operated within this little group of 3 or 4 people until he got the firm together. That was his gang that ended up doing the train robbery. Well, they did various jobs together. Then they did the London airport robbery, and then after the airport robbery, they did the train robbery. But by that time, he pretty much had his gang of like five kind of top people.
So who was in the gang then?
In the gang then, well, it was my dad, Charlie Wilson, Buster Edwards, Roy James, who would have been world champion racing driver if he ever hadn't got nicked in the train robbery, and Gordon Goody.
Right.
You know, I mean, so he always said like, I wasn't Bruce's number 2, because there were no, you know, history likes to say who's the leader, who's the thing. They were all in it, all on an equal share, but it was my dad's plan, and he made it his thing. In fact, he funded the Great Train Robbery, and he did like 99% of the work, the planning, the sorting it, organising everything out and stuff like that. And he had the natural kind of, well, he liked to be the leader and he liked the plan of it. So, you know, most of them were, as long as they had faith in what he was saying, were more than lucky to let someone else do the thing. But I'd say that they were kind of pretty equal, Gordon Goody and my dad. Although Gordon always got a bit pissed off. People used to refer to him as my dad's number 2. He wasn't. But the thing about Gordon, he was very, very slippery. And it's like, mate, you want to put yourself in the frame and you do that.
Why don't you go first?
Yeah, you can do that.
If you want the brains, be the brains.
We're all on an equal split. You know, I'm like, well, I can stick my neck in the noose. Yeah, get off you go, mate.
And obviously, I know there was absolute fucking outrage when it happened. And, you know, all the papers, all the televisions, it was the biggest robbery ever.
Well, the things what you got to remember, it's just prior to that, people back then were pretty ignorant into how government and parliament works and politics. Most people were still very God-fearing back then.
Right.
And they naively believed that to be a government minister, you know, an MP, you had to be a religious, God-fearing person who was completely altruistic, nationalistic, who was doing something great for the country and the greater good. It wasn't about personal gains or greed, which shows you how naive the public was back then. Then you had the Profumo affair, where it ends up with the war minister, John Profumo, was caught literally with his pants down having it with Christine Keeler, a prostitute, who also happened to be having it with a Russian lieutenant who was a member of the KGB. So that didn't look too good, and the British public was absolutely horrified, going, bloody hell, I didn't think these things go on in Parliament.
Ghastly behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting, you know. It's like, you know, don't do as we say, but don't do as we do kind of thing. And I think the public was so shocked about that, and became very, very, very untrustworthy of the government. And the government was fully aware of this, and the press had a field day. Right. You know, for them, it was like, this is fantastic. And they really loved winding the government up over this thing. As of course, it was a gift from heaven from a journalist's point of view, and gave them an opportunity to kind of like shake out some of these skeletons, which they would have been allowed to have put out in the press. They would have just been clamped down. You know, it's not like today. And so, I forgot my thread. Where was I? The perfume effect. So the government, extremely red-faced about this. When the train robbery then happened, it looked, from their point of view, that they were really letting things slip. First the perfume affair, and now a bunch of working-class guys robbed the Royal Mail, which is the Queen's money, you could argue. And so it was an attack on the state. And this embarrassed them even further and gave the press even more opportunity to take the piss out of the government. I mean, you've even got in the John Lennon film, Help, where he's talking to a copper, and he turns around and goes, Great Train Robbery, how's that going then? You know, and you had Peter Cook pretending to be Peter Cook, the great comedian, being interviewed on telly, where he's pretending to be a policeman, and you know, they're just actually roasting him, you know, as a copper for being a bungling thing in why haven't they caught the train robbers. So this really wound the government up, and it looked like they were losing grip on the country. So they thought, what, we got to come down really hard on these bastards, you know, don't care what it takes, even if we fit them up, whatever, we're going to get these guys. And they thought that they could show that they were taking, you know, the country to hand, and they were getting their shit together by giving these guys 30 years, which was 5 years more than you got for killing somebody. So this backfired on them because it put out the message to the general public, particularly the working class. If you've got 25 years for murdering someone, but 30 years for stealing money to be burned, therefore the government was saying that property was worth more than life. Well, that didn't go down too well with the working class straight away. And then when they gave them the 30-year sentence, it turned them into kind of martyrs. A lot of it divided the country, and a lot of people went, hold on a minute, this is bang out of order. 30 years just for nicking a few quid. And I know they go on about Jack Mills being over the hip, but per se, it wasn't a violent crime compared to the crimes that happened back in them days. I mean, the old bill would give you a kicking rather than not. I mean, I remember getting nicked myself in the 70s, and you knew damn well the first thing that got you in the cell that the coppers would come in and kick the living daylights out of you. You know, you can't do that now because they're worried you're gonna. But that's how it was. So it kind of backfired on the government. It elicited a lot of sympathy for the train robbers, especially for the working class. They saw this, you know, these people they'd voted in, they felt betrayed by the goings on with the shoots and the this, the that, and everything. So to them, the train robbers were like on their side attacking the government, and and through these warped tinted glasses, they became kind of folk heroes. And as I said, the public was split in half, and you've only got to look at some of the old news clips and everything, and you've got these posh people going, yeah, I think jolly good wheeze, I hope they get away with it, you know, I hope they get a good run for their money, you know.
But when they got the 30 years, was that recommended, or was that like...
No, that was set up by the establishment, because what you got to remember is Justice Edmund Davis made a very famous speech, and he said, you know, let us forget any notions of daredevilry. This was a heinous, sordid crime of greed and extreme violence, and therefore I recommend that they get the biggest possible sentence possibly, and gave them 30 years. But the funny thing is the year previous, two geezers got convicted of doing a robbery and shooting a night security guy. And the guy who was an accomplice to the shooter got 17 years. And the very same judge said 17 years is too much for, you know, accessory to murder, and reduced it to 10. Yet the train robbers who hadn't killed anybody and hadn't used any guns got 30 years. So no, the establishment basically just said, you know, we want you to lock these fuckers up and throw away the key. And in fact, the governor of where was it now? Durham, a guy called Muir, he said 25, 30 years, it's far too much. There's a danger and a risk that these prisoners will be broken out with the use of tactical nuclear weapons, and it's much kinder if we just execute the train robbers. He actually thought it'd be better to kill them than the inhumanity of locking them for 30 years. And of course, in them days, there was no parole. So 30 years was 30 years, you know.
I take it at that point, you got rid of the nuclear weapons.
Yeah, dump them.
Yeah, got rid of them.
Flush them down the
just so they couldn't
just
use that.
You get an extra 10 years.
Did he really say that?
Honestly, mate, honestly.
I mean, that is fucking insane. I mean, who's going to fucking break them out with nuclear weapons?
Well, this is what they panicked, of course, because you've got the train robbery. They caught the initial people, and all the initial people were, you know, as the story goes, there was two gangs. There was my dad's gang, but they didn't know how to stop a train without setting off alarms. So they got hold of another firm who knew how to do that. And it was the other firm, they all got nicked straight away within the first week. And then the only two out of my dad's gang who got pulled, unfortunately, Gordon Goody, who had blonde hair, dyed his hair dark and put on a pair of glasses, and he got arrested. Someone thought he was my dad. You could make it up. He's checked into the hotel, and the receptionist had rung up the old bill and goes, I think we got Bruce Reynolds staying here. And Charlie Wilson, they were only two of my dad's firm that got caught. And Charlie escaped, obviously, and Ronnie got caught as well, but Ronnie escaped. So two of my dad's firm, they escaped. But the rest of them, because when those two escaped, the rest of them were under lock and key, 24 hours a day, had screws outside, their lights were on in their cells. You know, it was, you know, beyond the Geneva War Convention, how they were being treated. They were so paranoid that any more escaped, because once again, it just made the government look. They just locked these lot away for 30 years. It's like, oh, really? Well, fuck you. We're going over the wall, son. We're not having any of that.
I mean, those guys that got nicked, like you said, straight away, what was that because they were just fucking morons, or did they do something wrong? Or
well, it was unfortunate. Basically, the guy who knew how to stop the train was a guy called Roger Caudry. He got a pal of his once he'd got the money, and he said, oh, I've got a load of money. I've rented this lockup down in Bournemouth. Do you want to come along with me for the ride? And he'd rented this lockup, and he paid in advance for it. Only problem was the person he'd rented it off was a policeman's widow. And because he'd give her money up front, she was a little bit suspicious and rang the old bill. And it turns out that basically he'd rented the lockup to stash his money in. So they nicked him straight away. They knew him because he was known for running with a firm called the South Coast Raiders, which was like Tommy Wisby's firm with Jimmy Hussey and stuff like that. And they were relatively successful, but small amounts. You know, I mean, people have been robbing trains for quite a while, but only small amounts. They didn't have the inside information or anything like that. It was more of a kind of a chance in it thing. And so because Roger was the first to get caught, and the old Bill knew who his associates were, they knew straight away who to look for. Now, they've been given a list by an informer within 24 hours. The old Bill had a rough idea who it was. And straight away, they would have known it had to have had something done to do with my dad, because there weren't many firms capable of pulling that one off. So my dad knew straight away that he'd be in the frame regardless. But, you know, his modus operandi was when you wanted for questioning, don't be available for questioning. And so he laid low for a little bit, and he thought it was going to. This is his biggest cock up. The fact that he thought he could have done something that big and it would have died down after a year. Right. And of course it didn't. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, particularly with the escapes and stuff like that. And it ended up, as my dad always said, if you call Vietnam the world's first sort of televised war, well, you could say that the Great Train Robbery was like the kind of first sort of televised media crime. And it's the longest running criminal soap opera that's been going. And there's still bits and pieces that haven't come out yet, you know, like, you know.
Did they ever find out who the informant was?
Well, there was a program years ago called Secret History, and they found old police notebooks. They reckoned it was a guy called Mickey Keogh, but my dad swore that the guy was 100% bona fide, and even Fred said, "What, Mickey Keogh? No fucking way." I don't know. You know, the truth is I don't know. But the bottom line is that they more or less knew pretty quick who was in it.
Wow.
And then it was a case of just proving they were in it. Now, interestingly enough, if the train robbery had gone to court today, they wouldn't have been able to nick any of them for the actual robbery because there was no evidence at all found on the train.
Wow.
Nada. The only so-called evidence was what they found at the farm. And what they found at the farm was the mail bags and the wrappers that went around the notes. They did try to burn them at one point, but realised it gave off too much smoke and was only going to draw attention. So instead, that's why they decided to have somebody come back to clean the farm. Now, when I say clean the farm, there's a lot of misconceptions that this guy was paid to go and burn it. No, he wasn't. He was just supposed to go and get the bags and the money wrappings. And that was it. All the food and everything else that was left there, my old man didn't give a shit about, because if you look at those old pictures, it's like a display in Selfridges, the way everything was, because everything had been wiped over 100 times. My dad had everyone in a human chain with a rag, and they're wiping everything down, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. And it's interesting that pretty much all the evidence was on movable objects that was found at Scotland Yard once they'd taken them out. But having said that, if they'd found any evidence of prints or anything belonging to anybody at the farm, that just proved you're at the farm. You could have been the guy who delivered the food there. You could have been anyone.
Could have been the Uber Eats guy.
Exactly. You could have been it could have been an insurance salesman who knocked on the door, whatever. So if that went to court now, all they could do is say, well, we allegedly found his print there, you know, even though it was on a movable object. I mean, my Uncle John's was found on a Monopoly board.
Wow.
And he turned around and went, yeah, so what? That could have been any time. And I lent the game to so-and-so, probably lent it to so-and-so, and he's ended up at the farm. And he got off with that. Everyone else should have been able to get off.
Right.
With the same kind of thing, you know, yeah, well, my print only ended up there. Oh, yeah, I went to deliver the food.
Right.
But what they illegally established, well, there's a couple of things the government did back then which were totally illegal and would get it thrown out of court today. One was they posted pictures of them all, you know, which can bias a jury. That's illegal. You don't have you seen this man wanted for questioning, da, 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 da. That puts them straight in the frame. So, you know... That was a no-no to start with. And the other thing is they made it so that if you were at the farm, therefore you were at the train. Well, that's totally illegal. That's bollocks. You can't prove that. So, you know, it's very interesting that, you know, that they all went down regardless. And they all come up with stories saying I was just there. None of them pleaded guilty. They all, you know, those who were so-called banked the rights about their prints being there, obviously, they weren't going to argue, oh, my prints were planted. You know, they had to go down with it. But none of them would admit guilt. But the saddest thing was that the guy with Roger Caudry, who went down to Bournemouth, who was a total innocent, a guy called Bill Bowl, and Roger just said to him, do you want to ride down to Bournemouth? We're going to drop some money off into this lockup. He got nicked alongside Bill Bowl, and he died in prison, an innocent man. The government, they fitted him up. They basically found some yellow paint at the farm, which had been used to paint the Land Rover and the truck. And they put a bit of this paint on a little watch fob and slipped it in his pocket. And he had absolutely nothing to do with it. And the same with Gordon Goody. They knew he was on it, but they couldn't prove it. And so they broke into his house and nicked a pair of his shoes and painted yellow paint on them. You know, and he was the first to say, okay, fair enough, I was a great train robber, yeah, but you dirty bastard. You know, I wasn't wearing them shoes on the night. And and the funny thing was they had him on the shoe, said he was driving the Land Rover, but there was no yellow paint on any of the pedals of this. How am I supposed to have driven the Land Rover if there's paint on my shoe, but there's none on the pedals, you know? So what I'd like to see actually today is someone let's like rerun it like it's a modern courtroom and do it today as they did, back in the day, and just see who would have walked free from it.
And
but that was like the establishment, basically,
right.
Head of the flying squad, he turned around, he said to the coppers, I want you to go in there and I don't want you to come out until you find something,
Right.
And that I say no more.
Right. and at that time, did you say your dad was on the run? He went on the run.
When was this?
When they got nicked, the guys, did he then go?
No, he was laying low at the moment to see kind of what was going to happen. Once he saw them all kind of falling down like flies, he thought, bloody hell.
Right.
And then when the sentencing came, he thought, that for a game of soldiers, I'm out of here. So he got a private plane, flew to Ostend, and then bosh, off he went to Mexico. Right. And then after a few false attempts, because everywhere me and my mum went, well, my mum had to go, we were being followed everywhere by the old Bill. And my mum knew, obviously, she'd arranged to go and meet my dad out in Mexico with me, but everywhere we went, we were being followed by the old Bill. So she went to go and see Tommy Butler, head of the flying squad, and said, hello, she goes, I know who you are. Where's your husband? She went, I don't know. He's left me, so I prefer if you stop following me around, and I want some privacy, this, that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, I don't believe you. And he says, I can lock you up right now if I want until you change your story. And she went, that's all right, lock me up. I bought my toothbrush. So he had her for like 15 hours and she didn't crack, my mum. So he let her go. So we did a few test runs. We went to Ireland 3 times and it was like... It was like a comedy, like it was coppers hiding behind bushes and everything, all trying to be, it was so obvious.
Right.
But she did it 3 times going over to Ireland and stuff like that. Until they went like, oh, right, she's got relatives, she's only going out there. And it was the 4th time we went out there. They got a little bit lax, and that was the time when we then f***ed off to Brussels and then made our way over to Mexico, where we lived for like 3 years.
Wow.
That was the good life.
And when you grew up, did you was your dad quite open about what he did, or did you not really know and you just thought he...
No, I mean, looking back at it, it seems ridiculous, but my dad was so confident. I didn't pick up any... I mean, kids are pretty...
I didn't know if you went to school and said, oh, what did your dad do? My dad steals things.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, I mean, later in life at school, if I was asked, I used to say my dad was a policeman, fun enough.
Right.
But when I was in Mexico, I was only, 4 or 5 years old. So I went to the school for the children of the American Embassy. They had an American school there. And so I got sent there. At that time, my dad owned the franchise for Dunhills.
Right.
So he was a respectable businessman as far as everyone was concerned. We were living with like the top 5% of Mexico. We were renting a penthouse of the president of the Bank of Mexico's son. So he was pretty well established. And because he was a businessman and the fact I never picked up any fear from him or my mum, I mean, I guess he must have been to some degree looking over his shoulder here and there.
Right.
But essentially, all I just saw was a very successful man in a great relationship with my mum. And I was a lucky, spoilt little brat living a life of Riley. And despite the fact, as we moved from place to place, I had a different passport with a different name. It was all part of a game, and there was no way that I could have seen my dad as a bad guy. It didn't fit the picture. So I guess trying to make sense of it all while we were moving by different names, I thought my dad was a spy, and I've got lots of images of watching him through glass bottom boats diving with his scuba gear on and stuff like that, and catching blue marlin with his on the back of a boat, and going to the bullfights. And he carried a gun as well.
So he was a cool dad, right?
So that was fucking super cool. Yeah. I mean, he kind of based himself, or he based his look on Cary Grant from the film In the Catch a Thief, you know, and he had his suits made same place as Cary Grant did Kilgore Stanley and French, Jermaine Street. His shirts were all handmade, Turnbull and Asser. He had his shoes made at Lobbs, you know, they're bootmakers for the Queen. Freddie Fulton said that my dad was, you know, once upon a time, sort of the best dressed man in London. You know, he was the epitome of cool.
Fashionista.
Yeah, not like me.
And then, you know, you when you did they arrest you in Mexico, or did you come back?
No. Basically, we were in Mexico. Charlie Wilson and Buster Edwards came out there. Charlie then went off to Canada. He was staying in Canada. He had a good setup there. Buster was at a bit of a loose end. Didn't really know where to go. Lovely guy, absolute diamond geezer, Buster, but he was like what you call like a rough diamond, whereas my dad and Charlie could kind of ham it up and sort of pretend to be anything but working class characters. As I said, he was your lovable, rogue, cheeky chappy. And to a certain degree, he didn't really fit in with the persona that my dad had portrayed himself as. And I think some of my dad's close associates were a little bit surprised by my dad's choice of, friends from England, shall we say.
This episode is brought to you by Marc Oliver Bespoke Tailors. Now let me tell you, Marc Oliver is one of the best tailors in Savile Row. All of their products are made in Milan. I've had my suits made there for over a decade and I swear by them. Marc Oliver brings together the classic Savile Row sharpness with the contemporary cut and style of Italy's leading tailoring houses. Available by appointment only in London's Savile Row. Marc Oliver's award-winning luxury service is the best there is. So go on, treat yourself to a luxury bit of tailoring. Click on the link below to check out what Marc Oliver Bespoke has to offer.
Buster then couldn't handle it out there. So he did a deal. He got Freddie Foreman to broker a deal with the old Bill, and he came and saying that he was a lesser player in the robbery, and they'd give him a lesser sentence if he came back and gave himself up, which he did. But my dad then kind of realised it wouldn't take long for the head of the flying squad to work out, you know, where Buster had travelled from, etc. And he knew Buster wasn't the type that would like be running out to exotic countries. He couldn't speak any different languages or anything like that, you know. So he only had to put two and two and think, like, he's either with Bruce or he's with Charlie, you know, And so my dad suddenly felt compromised, and one night he just went, that's it. Something doesn't feel right. And much to my chagrin, we had to pack up what we could fit in the car and leave. I was gutted. I had about 10 action men and just about every single accessory you could have. You know, the lunar module, everything, you know.
I've got to say, I mean, that Action Man, for people that are listening or watching this, that was their childhood, wasn't it? I mean, Action Man.
It was.
You know,
dolls for boys, but yeah, man. They were great, with gripping hands and eagle eyes.
The eyes.
And he could pull a little cord and he would talk. Yeah. So he cleared out of Mexico and then went to go and stay with Charlie for a little bit, and then we thought, well, it's a bit too close, you know.
Where was Charlie at that point? Was he in?
He was in Montreal.
Montreal
in Canada, yeah. So we went to go and visit him, and then my dad applied for his citizenship, and it was taking a little bit longer than usual, and he started getting a bit of cold feet, and he went down to the immigration and said, what's happening? This is taking forever. And they gave him all sorts of bollocks. And when he went out and was chatting to some of the other people that had been there, and they went, theirs only took a couple of weeks, and he's thinking, something's not quite right here. So once again, we did a runner from Canada. So he left some money in a lockup, and his gun, his Browning, and we went to south of France, where we then got in touch with some of his contacts back in the UK and was planning to do another robbery. and him and Fred had a look at something. It was a gold bullion train, but it was too heavy. That's Fred Foreman. It was too heavy with the police and stuff like that. It was really properly tooled up. The old bill were, and a lot of them. Anyway, word got out. There was still a big reward on my old man, and he was. I think by that time, 5 years of looking over your shoulder and everything like that, it was beginning to wear down on him, and I think he started maybe getting a little bit sloppy, almost, testing his luck, catch me if you can kind of thing. And anyway, somebody rang up the old bill and said, "Oh, Reynolds is back in town, and I believe that he's living somewhere down on the coast." And it was just a matter of time, and that was it. Yeah, one morning, ding dong, the bell went, and my dad said, it was like 7:20, I think, and my dad said, "Oh, that'd be Jane, the neighbour. Do you want to get that?" And I opened the door, and bouch, in came like 20, 30 policemen. It was like a blue blur. Just came steaming straight up the stairs, and somehow along, I got caught up in the melee, and I remember getting dragged up the stairs and dropped outside, sort of ejected just outside my bedroom, and my bedroom door was next to my parents, and I see them all run in there. I thought, what the hell's going on? I could hear all this noise outside my bedroom, so I went and had a look out the window, and it was like, there he is, and there was loads of police and cameramen and stuff like that out
so
on the
actually
street.
the press there as well?
Yeah, all the press was there. They'd all been tipped off. Yeah, he wanted his moment of glory, didn't he, Tommy Butler? The gold grey fox gets his man,
Right.
So yeah, I thought, what's all this all about? And I'm trying to make head and tail of this, and I'm thinking, okay, well, these are the police, and they're the good guys, and and my old man's a good guy, and I knew he'd been running and moving for something, and so in my young brain, I thought, well, this must be like a scene sort of like from John le Carré's The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. My dad's been rescued. No more running, we've been, our side have found up with him. Hooray, we're safe now, no more running. Then I heard my mum crying her eyeballs out, and I thought, hold on, that's not right. And then my old man came into my bedroom with Tommy Butler. And
every time I hear that name, I just remember on the buses.
I hate you.
I love you, Butler.
I hate you, Butler. Oh. And yeah, me too. And my dad said, "Look, I'm really sorry, son, but Daddy's been a naughty boy, and he's got to go away, for a while."
And how old was you then, Nick?
7. So, and I said, "How long's long?" And he went, "Don't really know yet." And it still didn't really, the penny didn't really drop until I think a week later. I got a chance to visit him in the prison. And I just remember it was like going into a maze, endless passageways with a door every 20 feet, and you've got the screw with this big bunch of keys. He had the Blakeys, for those who don't know, they're the little things they used to put on leather shoes to make them last longer, but you can imagine on a concrete floor, clack,
like
clack, clack,
tap dancing.
Tap dancing. Yeah, but that was all part of mental torture as well for the prisoners. It was all part of it.
Didn't know
that. It was all a form of instilling fear and stuff like that. And that tack, 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 the man's outside, you can hear him coming. And some people, that sound would drive them insane, and they're rattling their keys, So I just remember clack, 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 keys in the lock, clunk, open the door, lock the door, walk a few more feet, clack, 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 and then again. And it seemed to go on for about 40 minutes. And I was vaguely aware it felt like we were going in a sort of like a concentric spiral. It seemed like we were coming in on ourselves, doing lots of lefts, until finally got into this room, and in the middle of this room was a glass box. And my dad was in the glass box. And I'm just thinking,
Where was that? Was that Belmarsh?
I think it was Durham.
Durham. What a mad thing for you.
Durham. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? I mean, obviously, this is like pre-Hannibal Lecter or anything like that.
Was he like that?
I'm 7 years old. Well, yeah, with some fava beans and cooked his liver. So no, he's just sat in this box and he can't, you know. I think they had little holes. They didn't even have the technology with the phone like they got on death row now. I think there's little holes in it that you could talk to, but you couldn't hold them or touch them or nothing like that. And it was just that shock of suddenly thinking, Jesus Christ, what did he do to be in something like that, you know?
Dad, you said you was in trouble. You've been a naughty boy, but you've been really naughty.
Yeah, they've been really, really naughty. And of course, the thing is the security was way, way over the top because 2 had got away.
Right.
And he was known as the leader. They didn't know what contact there, and they just thought, we are really going to look stupid if this one gets away. So they had to make sure there's absolutely no chance whatsoever.
That must have been tough for you as a kid. And then going to the actual, was you actually at the thing when he got sentenced, or did your mum?
No,
Right,
I,
she kept
no,
you away.
I wasn't. And do you know what? I didn't really know what he'd done. And it sounds stupid now, but I remember being 8 years old, so he'd have been locked up for about a year. And I remember about the age of 8, I knew he'd been involved in something.
Right.
But didn't know exactly what it was. And for some reason, it didn't really, wasn't something I was curious about. I don't know why. I look back at it and I think I'm amazed that I didn't go, Daddy, why are you here? Or when I visited him in prison, or Mummy, what did he do? I don't know if they told me something else, and I believe that. I really don't remember. The penny only really dropped when I was about 13, I think, when Piers Paul Reed wrote that book, The Train Robbers.
Right.
And they did like a 4-part serialization in the Observer magazine.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, what? They did that? What? He was a ringleader? What? My Uncle John and my Auntie Barbara were involved? Fucking hell, I didn't know that, you know. And it was like, whoa.
From a family of criminals.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, bloody hell, you know. And then I was thinking, great, well, as soon as he comes out of prison, that's it. Me and him are going to run off into the sunset. And of course, it didn't work out that way. I mean, I remember when he was released from prison, there was posters all over it, say Bruce Reynolds released, and I was like, fucking hell. And every man in the distance I could see was like, there's my dad. And as they got closer, their face would change and it wasn't him, and I'd be really disappointed. And I was going to school one morning, and it was like this was Emmanuel in Clapham. And the driveway, there's big posh gates, and the driveway is about half a mile before you actually get to the big old mansion that is the school. And I walked all the way down there, and just before I got to the mansion bit where the school is, there in the car was my dad and my Uncle Terry, you know, and he went, get in the car, son. And I thought, that's it, we're off, you school. Right. He drove me round the corner, said, I'm out at the moment, but I've got to go back to Wormer Scrubs every night. But you know, what you do next weekend, and let's go out. And I was so pissed off when he dropped me back at school.
Right.
I just thought that was it. Once he comes out of prison, hey, we're off. You know, I still thought there was loads of money buried away, squirreled away, or something like that. Or he'd just go and nick another load. But you know, he came out of prison a different guy. You know, I mean,
what did he do? I mean, did he just spend the money, or did he?
Being on the run's very expensive, mate. You know,
for 5 years.
False passports cost a lot. Laundering your money, you know, all those notes were registered. Moving around, you know, safe houses, stuff like that. I mean, I remember there was a guy, boxing promoter. He brought Joe Louis over here. He got nicked once for heroin dealing. Joey Pyle.
Oh, Joe Pyle, yeah.
I remember one time when my old man was on the run in London. This is before he left the country, and he was laying low. And Joey Pyle said he had a little safe house for a fee, you know, obviously. And for years afterwards, whenever I used to bump into Joe, I always used to say, oh, thanks for that, Joe. If it hadn't been for that, my dad might have been caught earlier, And I wouldn't have had those 5 years on the run with him, which is what developed, you know, an unbreakable friendship. I had an extremely close friendship with my dad. It's like that old Jesuit saying, you know, give me the boy for 7 years and I'll show you the man, you know. And I'd spent more time with my dad in those 5 years on the run than most kids probably spend with their dads up until their teens, you know. And so I had a very, very close bond. So I was kind of, in a way, I was grateful to him. And, you know, I said to him, you know, I really appreciate that, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, there's a famous story that while my mum and dad were staying at one of Joe's flats, there was a knock on the door one day, and my dad said, oh, get that, will you? And she opened the door, and there's 2 policemen there. And she's thinking, fucking hell, I wasn't expecting that. And the police say, sorry to disturb you, madam, you know, and she's all a little bit flustered, and she's in a nightie. They're going, but there's a ladder outside the upstairs window. And she's thinking, oh no, my dad had a briefcase up there full of money, you know, and she's thinking, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. They're saying, do you mind if we come in and have a look? So she's like, oh, well, it's all a little bit, you know. They went, well, you better have a look upstairs, you know. So she ran upstairs and came back and said, no, everything kind of looks okay. And they said, would you mind if we step into the, you know, so she was thinking, and they walked in anyway in the living room. Only for my dad to jump up stark naked from behind the sofa, like going, oh. And they were a bit taken aback and don't know where to look, you know. And my mum's going, oh dear, this is terrible. And they're saying, well, what's the problem? They go, oh, my husband's away on business, and I know if this all comes out. And they went, you know, don't worry, if nothing's been taken, stuff like that, we'll take the ladder away, you know, but you want to keep an eye out and stuff like that, you know, and, you know, good luck. And off they go. They walked into the police station, and there, right in front of them, wanted, is a picture of my dad and a picture of my mum. They've legged it back there, and there's no sign of them. So anyway, so years later, I'm telling this story to Joe Park. I've been at a boxing match, and I'm with Joe Park Jr. in a car, and I went, by the way, I owe you, you know, I always used to like your old man. I always used to buy him a drink and go, thanks for that, Joe, you know, for putting me old man up. And he went, fucking hell. He says, putting the old man up, he says, he's the one who grasped him up. There's a member of the family that tried to fucking rob him. I thought, no honour among thieves. So he wouldn't have grasped him up for the reward, but he would have tried to nick what readies he had on him, you know. You go, dog eat dog, mate. Yeah.
And obviously, when did your mum sort of say to you, your dad's got 30 years, or did you read it in the paper, or did they just say he was going to be away for a long time?
I was staying with my auntie because my Uncle John had been acquitted, and I was staying with my auntie and my Uncle John. And
did your mum get nicked as well?
Well, this is basically when my dad, this was in Torquay, this all happened at the same time when Tommy Butler first arrested my dad. When you're saying, can I see my son, you know, and Tommy said, yeah, of course you can. He went, on my own. You went, no way, Bruce, you know, I'm coming in with you. And he said, can I get a deal? And he went, what sort of a deal? He went, you know, if I give back what money I got left and I plead guilty and this, that, you know, is there any chance you can say that I was a lesser player? And he went, no chance, Bruce. He goes, I've been having holidays all over the world, saying it's on the rumour that you've been spotted in this particular location. He goes, the amount of money I've wasted to the taxpayers, you know, I can't say I was doing that for a lesser player, you know. So he says, no, but what I will do, if you say, if you plead guilty and give back whatever you got, we'll let Angela go. Otherwise, she's going to get Nick, and Nick's going to an orphanage, you know. So it was like, all right, I'm guilty. So my mum was let out of the frame. These days, they would have locked the wives up as well, probably, you know. But he was happy enough just to get my dad, and for my dad to say, yeah, like he would plead guilty. So So when we were living with my, it must have been maybe a week just before I went to visit him in the prison. My auntie's children, so my cousins, they came running back from the sweet shop and said, "There's a big picture of your mum and dad in the sweet shop." I went, "Really?" And I went, and there was a picture of my mum and dad, front page, Bruce Reynolds arrested. So that was the first kind of news thing that I saw. But the funny thing is that because I'd lived abroad pretty much all my life, I couldn't read or write English at all. I could speak Spanish and I could speak French, but I couldn't write or read English. And I got sent to boarding school, and I remember finding it really, really hard, where everyone could already read and write English and I couldn't. And while they were all out having fun, I was just sat away trying to write. It was like, this is not fun.
The cat sat on the
mat. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Jack and Jill went down the hill. So yeah, it was only in my teens really that when it was serialized that I saw this thing, and then I really wanted to know about it. And I knew that in the past I'd found my mum had loads of suitcases with newspaper clippings, which I think I'd looked at when I was younger, but hadn't really kind of sunk in. So this time, knowing what I knew and then going through the newspapers, it was like, wow, fuck it now, But I didn't tell anyone about it until I was in my 20s, really, because it wasn't. I didn't fraternise within that criminal establishment, and neither did my mum. And so, it was a stigma, it was the sort of thing. I went to a very, very posh school, and all of my mates' fathers were the type of people my dad would have robbed given half the opportunity.
You could be the inside man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I did think about that, but the sort of thing, anything can go missing. It's got to be him. His dad's a criminal.
Yeah,
so
Reynolds.
Yeah, Reynolds. Yeah. So I kept quiet about it, and I had a fake name then. Anyway, my name wasn't Reynolds then. So I think a couple of the teachers must have known, but I didn't tell anyone about it until. I certainly didn't when I was in the Navy, because I thought that might have got me booted out.
Right.
But I say it wasn't particularly cool. Like it wasn't cool to have tattoos then, or if you had a member of the family that had been in prison, there was almost like a stigma attached to it, unless of course you're hanging out in them circles, and I wasn't. So it was only really back the time I met you, or the mid-90s,
right,
that there was this kind of gangster chic phenomenon sort of thing, with Lenny McLean's book becoming #1.
right.
And then all these other guys, Fred coming out with his book, and all these people that once upon a time would have said, "Oh, I ain't writing about that, that's being a grass." I mean, even my Uncle John, when my dad wrote his book, even though he changed the name of everybody that was involved, my Uncle John rings out and goes, "You fucking grass." It's like, well, it was my plan, it was my fucking robbery. I've changed the names of everyone in it, for fuck's sake. How am I being a grass? He was so old fashioned, my Uncle John, like, but in those days they all started, they all wanted to write their memoirs, all hoping that they'd be made into films and stuff like that,
And how long did your dad actually do in total?
Well, by the time they caught him, and because he'd done a plea, he pleaded guilty and he gave back some money. He only got 25 years instead of 30, because by then the sort of general brouhaha had kind of died down to a certain
25 years, that's still a long time.
So he did give him 25 years, and 25 years was 25 years, and so I mean, I'm amazed my mum lasted 2 years before she divorced him. But you could, she was young.
Right.
My mum, she was only in her early 20s. So for her, the idea, as much as try as they could through letters, and I've got all of their letters. I mean, sometime I was thinking about maybe doing a play based on them or getting them published, because they're absolutely tremendous, and the insight but the love that they had for each other. I mean, it was a great love story. Even though she divorced him, she had a lot of mental health issues and stuff like that. And when he came out of prison, they got back together, and he looked after her despite the fact she was manic depressive, schizophrenic. You know, and where most villains ditch the wife and mother their kids and go off and get themselves a nice young, you know, Barbie girl.
Right.
He stayed by my mum, which made all the old villains' wives fall in love with him. Oh, Bruce lovely, innit?
Why can't you be more like Bruce?
He stayed by Angie. Oh, he's lovely, innit? Oh, bless him.
And for you, when you finished boarding school, did you go uni?
No, I joined the Navy.
So that was your next step. So you went into the Navy, and
Yeah, because it was very violent times. I was living in Streatham when I was coming back. My school was down in Portsmouth, down in Shoreham Grammar School, so down near Brighton, and it was pretty rough, Streatham, at that time, and there was a lot of gang wars going on with Asian guys and skinheads. And it was pretty vicious up until the time of the Brixton riots, and that was the first time that Indian gangs and skinheads had a common enemy, which was the old bill, and that kind of changed. You didn't get those kind of, but up until that point, you get gangs of skinheads running around with bicycle chains, chasing after gangs of Indian guys with bicycle chains. It was pretty vicious.
Yeah.
And most of my mates were in gangs. And we're going to prison. I got nicked for GBH, and then I suddenly thought, F this. And I told him I was going to join the Navy. It was my kind of get out of it. And the copper that nicked me was ex-Navy.
Right.
And I think because of that, when I had the court case and stuff like that, all my mates went down, and I didn't. They let me off. And that was it. So I really joined the Navy to escape. And see the world, and I had a restless spirit, obviously, sort of being on the run with my dad, constantly moving around.
Again, the Falklands War, I mean, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, well, I didn't fucking sign up for that, did I? I mean, I remember being with my dad when he went, "Have you been looking at the news?" And I went, "Nah, I never look at the news, do I?" And he goes, "Well, they're calling all ships back from leave." And I went, "Really? What was that then?" And he went, "Oh, so it's kicked off down the Falklands." Now, I thought this was part of the Shetland Islands, so it didn't really make sense to me. And he's going, "Yeah, the Argentinians have invaded." I go, "What? What the fuck are South Americans doing all the way going north of England?" So he said, "Yeah, when we get back tonight, we better check the news." Anyway, I looked at it, and it said, "These ships are leaving tomorrow. All ratings from HMS Hermes have been called in." And I thought, this can't be right. So I rung up. And the thing is, I'd given them a fake address, the old bill. And they'd sent the police round like 5 times to this address I'd given them. So when I rang up, it's like, "Where the fuck are you? The ship's leaving in a few hours," and everything like that. So my dad drove me down to Waterloo Station, and I turned around to him. I said, like, "Well, you know, the moment we sail, I'm sure the RGs will shit their pants and it'll be game over, and I'll be back in a week," you know. I didn't know where we were going. It took us like 3 weeks to get down there. It was that far, you know. And even all the way down there, I believed the moment the Argentinians saw our task force that they would go, "We ain't going to win this," and would give in. And then the Sheffield got hit, and that's when we all thought, "Fucking hell, what are we doing? This is insane. We're going to
die here.
We're going to die out here. This is insane." With 20,000 odd bloody miles down down in the South Atlantic,
It's
miles
cold.
away
It was
from
cold,
everything.
wasn't it, down there?
Oh, it was brutal. Worse than the car. I mean, the thing is, the water would hit the deck, would hit the side of the ship. It would spray up, and it would land as ice. It was that cold.
And how long was you?
Freezing.
Was it about 6 months it went on for that? Conflict?
6 months, yeah. It was
right.
6 months the thing was on. So, but the worst thing really was about, well, apart from thinking you're going to die, I mean, like at 6 o'clock every day, morning and night, was when they sent the old French Étendard, which were the French planes that carried the Étendard missile, which was the ship killer.
Right.
I remember when the Sheffield got hit, they were celebrating in France. It was a great day for French engineering because they knew how much money they were going to make selling these
That's so
missiles
French,
to everyone
isn't it?
else. Yeah,
They're either waving the white flags.
yeah.
Or
They
they're doing that.
never got over Agincourt, did they, mate? But yeah, I didn't sign up for that at all. I was really kind of shocked, and especially when I say the Sheffield got hit, and I was actually up on the upper deck, supposed to.
Was that the one that Simon Weston was on?
No, he was on the Galahad. Know him, top geezer. He was on the Galahad, which was like a little small troop ship. Poor fuckers, they got stuck in a little area called Bomb Alley, which was really badly defended, and them and a few of them they got bombed. And as you know, he got terribly.
He was
Terribly burned, but there were some almighty fuck-ups that we hadn't been to war for years. The bad thing on the Sheffield is that one of the bombs had gone down the main funnel and had blown up right next to the operations room. Now, the operations room happened to be next to the galley. You know, that's where the kitchen are. And you didn't have plates, you know, like for your food. You had these metal trays that had little depressions stamped out, and that bit's for your veg, that bit's for your pudding, that bit's for your main, and that bit's for your gravy or whatever, you know, or your cup fits and that bit. And these things are made of stainless steel, and they fitted in these receptacles that were sprung loaded. Now, of course, once this bomber's gone off in the operations room, it's blown up through the galley, and these things are flying everywhere. They're chopping people in half, slicing their heads off. The other thing is all of our uniforms were made out of nylon, and running through all of the ships, they've got super steam heated pipes, and the shock of a ship getting hit, even if it didn't go through the plating of the hull, it could shatter these pipes. And if you're walking past one of those, your uniform just melted on you instantly. It became part of you. I remember I was up on the radar deck actually. Actually, no, the satellite communications deck when the Sheffield got hit, and the missile was meant for us. We turned around, shooting loads of chaff, that's little bits of foil, which shows up like on the radar of the missile, like a big ship, a big target. So we turned arse onto this thing as it's coming towards us. They're all shouting, hit the deck, hit the deck. I didn't really have anywhere to go because by this time they've closed everywhere down. And if you're outside, tough shit, you can't go back in. It's all locked down. And I'm watching this thing come towards us, and the helicopters are taking off and they're firing all these clouds of crap. And anyway, the missile went straight through this load of foil, and realised it hadn't hit anything. So it goes back on the scan, and the next thing it detected was the Sheffield, and it went and hit that. And because I'm standing on the deck, I'm watching the survivors getting brought on. That was the first time I'd seen.
That must have been horrific.
Casualties. Oh, fucking hell, mate. It was like guys jumping out of helicopters, like with one boot on, no clothes, covered in burns, like the blast had just taken everything off, but they somehow just had one boot on. Guys screaming their heads off, no arms, no legs, because we were the hospital ship as well, so which was a bit ridiculous. We were the hospital ship, and we were the target every day. You know, these people are waking up. Where am I? Where am I? Are you on the Hermes? Oh no, that's the last place I want to be. I've just come off a bomb ship, and now I'm a sitting duck. You know, but that was pretty hard. And then because I was a diver, I had to fish quite a few bodies out of the water and stuff like that. And a couple of times you grab hold of someone and the skin would just slide off like a fucking marigold glove, you know, like that. It's just like, yeah, it was pretty grim.
And then after the Falklands War, and you got home, how long did you stay in the Navy for, Nick?
Well, after the Falklands, I was in Navy Intelligence for 2 years. So there was a secret, and I can say that now because it's It's not there anymore, but it used to be a secret Navy base underneath Trafalgar Square. And one of my jobs was being in communication. Like back in those days, it was the Cold War, and you know, the biggest secret you could have is where are our nuclear submarines, because that was the deterrent. And one of my jobs was to communicate with the submarines, so I had to know where they were, and you had to set up. It's kind of quite complex, but you knew certain times when they were going to do a very, very quick broadcast. And, you know, I mean, they could be underwater for 6 months, but to do a broadcast, they had to poke.
I mean, that is a fucking shit job, isn't it, being on that for 6 months underwater?
Christ almighty, yeah. Fuck that. And so I'd have to set up all these little transmitters all over the world, you know, even to the case of like sometimes it's like, fuck me, how am I going to jump from there to there? And you'd ring up some guy who'd have a little transmitter in his garden shed, you know, and he'd have to cycle up this little hill and then go, get the generator going on this thing that had been there since World War II, you know, just so he could be the little link between this transmitter and to get it over there, you know, and I'd get the little link running and it'd all be encoded and stuff. Anyway, I had that for 2 years and I loved that because I got extra money. So you didn't look like a...
But you felt like a secret agent as well.
Yeah, well, it was great because you walked... There was 2 entrances. One was a fake bank that you walked into, and the other one was behind a statue of Captain Cook. And you went in through this door, and there's just a long passageway that, you know, looked like infinity. And if you knew the right door, had a keypad and it opened, and there was a glass lift, and it took you down, and there was all armed guards and everything like that. And you show your ID card, and then they let you in. But you're allowed to wear what you wanted and have long hair, so you didn't look like an IRA target, you know. So, you know, I used to wear the most ridiculous outfits and had shoulder length hair,
right?
You know, and I loved it. And you got extra money, and it's at that time I'd had a band in the Navy, but it was that time I was living on this boat which used to belong to Richard Branson. It's a long story how I got to meet him, and I went out with his sort of adopted niece for 5 years. So I was living in Little Venice. And there was a pub around the corner from there called the Warwick Castle. And Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd used to be drinking in there all the time. And right opposite the canal was another pub, but I think was it called the Prince Albert? I can't remember. And they used to have comedy nights in there, but they had a stage up there as well. And there was a famous band in the 60s that lived sort of in the area, got back together called the Pretty Things. And they got Dave Gilmour on guitar, and they got the original piano player of the Rolling Stones. It was an amazing super group, and I'd had a band in the Navy, and so I'd pop along and see these guys, and I'd get to know them drinking in the bar. And so for a year and a half, I played with these guys. I couldn't believe I'm playing with my heroes, you know.
That's
I was in a band with Dave Gilmour, yeah, and I ended up playing with Pink Floyd, as it happened years later. I ended up working for Pink Floyd for 5 years, and I built a recording studio on Dave Gilmour's boat, but that's another story. So I was loving it, Navy intelligence, earning extra money, and playing music in this band, and that was great until after 2 years, I got sent back down to the Falklands because there was a brand new bit of kit. It was all very hush hush. It was only me and another guy that was of a rank to run this particular bit of equipment, and he'd done a year, and it was his turn off, and there was no one else. So even though I'd already been down the Falklands, they sent me back down there again, which I was most pissed off about, just because I knew about this particular bit of radar, just so we could go round and round and round and round the circles. So that's when I thought, right, I've had enough of this, and I put my notice in. So I was actually signed up for 12 years, but I think I did 7.5.
Wow.
Which means I don't get the pension, whatever. But you know, by then I'd had enough of it. I never, you know, and you know, at the time when we were down there, you know, I was kind of quite, you know, true Brit and this, that, and the other. But it kind of opened my eyes because I was also running the TV studio, and every day, because we're above, the TV studio was above the waterline, and so the ITV crew was what's his name now? Mike Nicholson. I think he was the BBC horrible cunt. He was, And then Brian Hanrahan, who was really, really great. They were the two reporters, and they shared one cameraman, Bernard Hesketh. He'd filmed over 100 wars. Fucking super cool, this guy. And in them days, old man, his camera was about that big. And basically every day, they were sleeping in the TV studio, and I'd get them up and sort them all out and stick them on the helicopter. And then they go, and this is Mike Nicholson, da, 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 da. And then the cameraman would turn around and go, this is Brian Hanrahan. So they would share the thing and it'd get edited. And then it gets sent back to me, and I would look at it all, go through it all first, and then I'd arrange how to get shit back to England. Now, I would see this footage a month later once it had been edited in. I didn't know what spin and all that sorts of bullshit was in, but when I saw that the way everything was being changed to fit a certain narrative, I suddenly started thinking, who are the good guys here? Who's the bad guys here? You know, and it kind of made me really wonder what the fuck I was doing down there. Plus all the thing about the blowing Prince Andrew out of proportion, what a hero he was. I mean, he was an absolute creep. Everyone hated him. In fact, I knocked him flat on his back, actually, but that's another story.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, what happened?
No one liked him. I'd like to say I did it deliberately, but I was swinging through a hatch at high speed, and he just happened to be coming the other side, and I caught him straight in the chest, and he went down like a sack of shit, basically. Yeah.
Did he take it well? Did he get upset?
Well, he was winded. It took him a couple.
Because I know there was a rumor that he got upset when people don't put his teddy bears in the right order. So I
didn't know anything about that. But the thing is that it was ridiculous. This paper had come round saying that Prince Andrew is going to be on board this ship, blah blah blah, and should you run into him, depending on the circumstances, who he's with, what he's wearing, etc., etc. He had all these different titles, and you're supposed to have read all of these and signed it. And I thought, it's fucking 2,000 people on my boat. What's the chance of me running into him, you know? So I just signed it, didn't bother.
Literally did.
Yeah, 2 days later, a phone call from my boss. Midshipmen doing their task book tomorrow. So I want you to give them a talk about UHF communications, show them around all the comms and stuff, and then give them all little jobs to do for their task books, you know, like going up the mast and clean the radar or the AKJ Christmas tree transmitters, this, that, whatever. Because as well as being a diver, I was an electronic weapons engineer. And so I'm thinking, right, okay, all right then, right, here we go. So up they come, about 20 midshipmen, you know, and I'm showing them all the equipment and things like that. And took about an hour. And when it was a time to give them jobs to do, I'm going, they've all got their name badges there. So I'm going like, midshipman so-and-so, you go off, get a bucket, da-da-da. You get up there, you go to the operations room, you need to get permission to switch the radars off. You got to get the right keys. You do that, you do that, you do that. And I'm leaving him till last because he didn't have a name badge. And I didn't know what the f*** to call him. And I hadn't read the thing. And I'm thinking, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I left him till last, and just when I was going to go, oh, fuck it, I'll just call him Sir, you know. I thought, is it Midshipman Mountbatten? Or is it... And I outranked him then at the time because he was a midshipman, you know. So it's like, anyway, got to him, and he said, hey, thank you. And up he got, and he walked away. I thought, you cheeky fucker, you're supposed to, I'm supposed to give you a job, and you're supposed to get it filled in your task book. Anyway, word had gone around, he'd more or less done this to every department. And he was most unliked. And of course, all the officers were grovelling to him because they all hoped they'd get invited round his mum's for Sunday lunch one day, you know. And so word had got round that he was just wandering away and not doing his task books, that sort of thing. So when they got down to, they had to go down to the engine rooms. And now the guys who really run the ship, it isn't the captain. It's the chief stoker, the chief marine engineer. He's the guy who makes the boat move. And the chef, the chief chef. They're the guy. They run the fucking ship. Forget the captain, you know. He's just a sailor, you know, with lots of fucking gold scrambled eggs on his hat. And so they concocted a plan to teach him a lesson. So it's about half an hour to go before lunchtime, and the chief stoker says, and they're all covered in oil and muck from being down the engine rooms. He went, I'll tell you what, because I'm going to let you go for lunch early because you've got to clean up and everything like that, so, so you don't miss lunch, off you go. So they all file up there. Where are you going? To Prince Andrew? And he went, no. So he goes, not you, son. You're going down. They had him cleaning inside the boilers. Now, inside of the boilers, there's about that much fat, horrible, oily, gunky slag. Right. It's nasty. I mean, when you go in there, when you come out, basically your boots, your pants, your socks, your overalls, everything just gets put in a bag and ditched. There's no, and it takes about a month before you don't stink of all this crap and the stuff's out of your. It's horrible. So they had him down there. Right,
I bet he loved that.
Chief had him down there. Had him down there for about an hour, and then when he's come up, he said, hey, but what about lunch? What about my lunch? And he went, that's okay. It's been sorted out with the chief stoker, and everything like that. So he's gone to try to clean himself up as much as he can, and he's turned up at the galley, and I've come for lunch, and I said, well, it's over, and he says, well, go see the chief stoker, and Chief Stoker comes out and goes, what the fuck do you want? And he went, well, and I was told there's a late lunch. Yeah, really? Well, there's two opes in there, Bob and none. Now fuck off. And that was it.
Wow.
But that was a different time when I fucking kicked him in the chest. But he had a security guard with him. That was the funny thing.
Well, in case
so he went flying on his arse, and next thing I know, I'm pressed up against the bulkhead in an arm lock like that. And I'm saying, hey, Valve, what do you think? I'm a fucking Russian sleeper. That I joined the Navy just in case one day there's the off chance that I'm going to end up on the same boat as Prince Andrew. I said it was a fucking accident, it wasn't deliberate.
I mean, all that stuff with him and Jeffrey Epstein and all the stuff with, obviously he did that famous TV interview.
Yeah.
With Emily.
Where he basically shot himself in the foot. And Andy actually thought he did good.
I mean, I've never met him, but I did actually think, if you're going to have a conversation with someone, no one's going to believe that you go to fucking Pizza Express. No one's going to believe
exactly.
It. Where was you? Well, at 7 o'clock on that day, I was in Pizza Express.
But the thing is, even if he was in Pizza Express, he would have had time to go to Pizza Express, have a pizza, see you later, Beatrice, and then go off. It's just good to went to Pizza Express.
But I'll be honest with you, I've never ever, seen any member of the royal family in Pizza Express, but McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You've been going to the wrong Pizza Expresses.
Or Nando's. I've never ever. I'm 53. Maybe I haven't been to the right ones. But.
Well, no, he had a bad rep in the Navy. The thing is, another reason people didn't like him is he had this guy with him, Royal Protection Officer or whatever the fuck he was, and you'd have a disco in some local port that the ship had gone into. And you'd have some sailor who'd invested in some girl, bought her a few drinks, was dancing, smooching with her, all that, thought he was onto a winner. And the next thing you know, tap on the shoulder, and it's Andrew's bodyguard bloke. Says, oi, you, fuck off. Turns around to the girl, because Andrew's taken a liking to her. And said, would you like to dance with Prince Andrew? And of course, the bird's not going to go, what do you mean? I'm with this guy. But Prince Andrew, really? Yeah, of course. And he was doing this all the time.
So he got the Royal Protection Officers to chat up girls on his behalf.
Yeah. And you had, and the thing, everyone was grovelling to him because, they all hoped, as I said, they'd get a chance to be in his inner circle.
Right.
Hideous man. Whereas his brother, Charlie, who I knew, he was a lovely guy. My very first ship was a minesweeper up in Rosyth in Scotland. And he was the captain, he was the commander of the ship next to me. Yeah, he was lovely. Everyone loved him and respected
So King
Charlie.
Charles is the man.
He's he's a bit of a hippie, but he was well respected, and he was He was a lovely guy.
When you say
He wasn't an arsehole.
When you say he was a hippie, was it because he was smoking a joint, or was he just very in touch with the planet? Or
he was in touch with the planet. He was very spiritual, and you know, like he thought of the world as a garden, and he really believed in all that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, he was saying stuff about the planet years ago that people thought you got to be mad, and he was ahead of his time in that respect. But you know, I can't speak about what I might think of him now, but when I was up 17 and I knew him, and he was the captain of the ship next to me, his crew loved him, and I thought he was an all right guy, and he was well respected, and he was a good captain.
Big up, Your Highness.
So good on you, Charlie. Andrew, it's all going to come out soon, mate. Apparently there's a little black vault, allegedly. The Sun has got a little black vault of stories that are just too explosive to go public.
Wow.
And I've been told, allegedly, that there's quite a few stories about Andrew that have been put away in this little box that might come out at one time.
I mean, he has stepped down, hasn't he?
Well, he didn't have much choice, did he, really? I mean, if I was Charlie, I'd have excommunicated and sent him off somewhere else.
I was going to send him to the tower.
Yeah, I thought it was disgusting that he was allowed to be there at the Queen's funeral. I mean, the guy's totally embarrassed. I mean, she was a good old bird. She was, I quite like the Queen. Yeah, I think for me personally, the monarchy should have died with her. It's end of now, I think, particularly with Andrew and stuff like that. They're just a bunch of privileged because, aren't they?
I mean, I've always grown up with looking at the Queen as being head of the state, and I've always enjoyed I like tradition. Right.
Yeah.
And I definitely think. I mean, when you look at the royal family at the moment, obviously the Queen's no longer with us. God rest her soul. Obviously, King Charles has stepped up. But I think when you talk to most people, they all say Prince William is going to make a great king. I don't know why, but him and Kate, for whatever reason, just seem to have really caught the public imagination.
They make England look good. They're attractive. They're not inbred like all the other royals.
Right.
They've towed the line. I mean, Harry went the other way and has embarrassed the royal family, whereas William has more or less accepted this is my role. And if, people are going to think that the royal family are something to be respected, they got to lead by example. And him and Kate, seem to do a good job as heads of state. I mean, I'm not too sure about, Charlie and Camilla, because that leaves a bit of a bad taste in my mouth about the whole Diana thing. I think really Charlie should have said, oh, I'm king, and then stepped down and given it to Wills, and then married the horse, Do
you know what, though? I think for him, and again, I don't know him, I've never met him, but I would say that having grown up as the Prince of Wales all your life, and looking at your mother and her being the Queen, you feel probably it's your birthright to be the king. And when he eventually got that, he probably thought, I've got. And obviously, recently he's had cancer. I don't know if he's in remission yet or if he's still being treated. But it's sort of like he became the king, and then he got dealt that blow. So if he recovers, which we hope, God willing he does, maybe he's only been doing it a year. So I think it's very difficult to judge him on what he's done. But I think it's weird. Like there was lots of people that loved Diana, but there's also lots of people that didn't like Diana, and it's like politics, it's like religion. You know what I mean? There's some people that like
it's a very grey area today, though, because me and you, we come back of a certain age when it was okay to be like nationalistic. It was okay to be proud of the country you came from. It was okay to wave your country flag, and you weren't upsetting any minorities. These days, you know, it seems that the modern world is trying to, purely for economic reasons, not moral reasons, are trying to make it a crime or a sin if you love your country, if you're patriotic, you know? So by sort of taking away the power of being a patriot, and this is why this country's in such a mess. If you're not proud of who you are and you don't have any identity, well, then you don't give a shit about the country, do you? And that's basically, you know, how they've made it. But if that's the way that it is, it kind of, where does a royal family stand? They're the figurehead of what? Of what state? Because you're not allowed to wave the St. George flag. You can't hang the Union Jack outside your house.
I mean, that is insane.
You know, it's just ridiculous
stupid.
how we bent over. I don't want to go off on another tangent.
My
but how,
favourite.
you know, we're democracy. I thought the thing about democracy is that, you know, it's majority rules, and it seems lately we've just been completely undone, and we're being held to ransom by all these tiny miniature groups that are demanding that their rights are more than the rest of everyone else.
Well,
and somehow or other, they're getting away with it.
Yeah, I still fly my Union Jack, and if anybody doesn't like it, f them. Right?
Yeah, you hear that?
And genuinely, like, I honestly think the world's gone mad because, you know, and I've noticed it even seeping into Christmas, right? And for me, my kids have always grown up with Christmas being magical. You know what I mean? Go and see Santa. You try and see Santa now, right? Loads of places don't do that. Loads of places don't put up Christmas decorations. And then when you go in a card shop, you got all these silly fucking cards saying season's greetings and happy holidays. And you think, what is all this about? And some said, oh, it's because we don't want to offend people. And it's like, if they don't like it, fuck them. If I go to another country or another place, or, you know, and it might not be the same religion as me, or it may not be the same people as me. Yeah. If they have a card celebrating whatever they're celebrating, I'm not offended by it. I don't give a fuck. If a card says to me, Happy Christmas,
Happy Hanukkah, Happy Eid, Happy Ramadan, whatever. You know, you can be what you want to be. Just don't shove it down my throat telling me because don't think the way you think. There's something wrong with me.
I have got you a season's greetings card. Happy holidays card. I'm going to send you one.
That's one with, I want one with a pig on it. Season's gruntings.
That's a good one. Season's gruntings. And obviously, you know, we've obviously digressed off what we were talking about. But the good thing is we've had the conversation. But
I can always come back.
You
mate.
come out the Navy, right?
I come out the Navy, very disillusioned.
Right.
Having been sent down the Falklands again, which I didn't think I would have to do. I went to Australia and joined a band.
Wow.
And then I got booted out of Australia for overstaying my visa. And
did you say my dad was a criminal? I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I don't think they would have worn that one very well. But the funny thing is that passport was in the name that I'd been for years, which was never my real name.
Right.
And so I got booted out. I had to come back to England, went to Australia House, and they wouldn't let me have another visa to go back. So I kicked off and ended up getting ejected. So I thought, well, f this. So I rang up my dad's solicitor, got my name changed back into my old name, got a new went up to Manchester, got a new passport, went to Australia House there with a new name and whatever, and they stamped it. So I was like, fuck you, Australia. Went back to Australia, then realised I didn't want to marry the girl that I thought I was going to marry out there, which was the main reason I'd overstayed my visa, you know. And I thought, what am I doing? Once I've been back in England after a year and a half, I was like, what am I doing? You know, Australia was great, but it was very basic back in those days. It's not like it is now with all high-rise and stuff like that. And it was a little bit Groundhog Day for me. I mean, I had a great band out there, and I had a good lifestyle out there, and it was easy, really easy making money. Not all of it legally. And it was fun until I came back to England, and then I thought, well, hold on a minute, I've got unfinished business, plus a load of my stuff still in my house in Australia. Right. But I went back and then realised, nah, this isn't for me. And the band I was in, they'd all started injecting amphetamines. It was all getting really fucking messy.
Wow.
And I thought, do you know what? Sod this for the Game of Soldiers. I think it's time to go home. And I did, and I moved back in with my mum and dad for like a couple of years, which was great. It was the first time I'd really kind of lived with them as a couple.
Right.
And that was fun. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
And then what happened then with the music?
So I was living with my parents for a little bit. Then I got a place. Then I started working, building recording studios, and that was with a guy called Bill Kelsey, who invented the very first mixing desk, and he had a business in Notting Hill. And so I was working for them, making patch bays and doing audio cabling and stuff like that, and sometimes going on site and actually having to wire up all the mixing desks. And then one day, Pink Floyd's company, they had a bit of a panic on that. They had a big build they needed to do, and their top guy was sick. So they loaned me out to Pink Floyd for like 3 days, and they basically kept me ended up running their department for 5 years, which at the time of my life, because they also ran the main stage at Glastonbury. So I used to go to Glastonbury and work on the main stage, got to meet all of my heroes, which was great, except for Lou Reed. He was so fucking rude. I was so disappointed. I couldn't believe, I'm going to see the Velvet Underground. I'm going to be stood on the side and I get to say hello and shake their hands and everything. And he upset me so much that I actually walked off the main stage and went to a totally different part of Glastonbury. I didn't even catch the Velvet Underground, which I regret now. Right. That was just me being a bit of a bitch, I suppose. But yeah.
And how did the Alabama 3 thing start?
Well, the Alabamas, there's multiple versions. The kind of the one that's probably closest to the truth is the band was formed in 1995 at a rave. Where somebody was playing techno music, and Larry Love, our lead singer, just for the hell of it, started singing and Hank Williams over the top of it, right? And then the very Reverend D. Wayne Love, who now sadly is no longer with us, he died 3 years ago. He went, "Hey, Bobby, yeah." He goes, Hank Williams, yeah. So he started getting in a little bit of that, and then started ad-libbing. And he had a really, really good American accent. And that was the time of Britpop, and everyone was waving the flag and dressing up in Union Jack.
I remember Ginger Spice.
Goes, yeah, all of that, Ginger Spice, we remember. Yeah. And everyone's on little mod bikes and Oasis, and everyone was celebrating Cool Britannia, and New Labour was in, and fucking Tony Blair was inviting all these musicians for tea round at number 10 because he wanted to be seen as cool. Alabama 3 was like, fuck that, we're not subscribing to that kind of thing. So everyone pretended to be American. It was a piss take.
Right.
And so just so they were, well, no, originally the band was called the First Presbyterian Church of Elvis the Divine, which is a little bit of a mouthful. Not Presbyterian, Presbyterian, and it was all about setting up as a cult with Elvis as a divine god. And Americans, being Americans, they actually believed it was a real cult, and that the very Reverend D. Wayne Love was an ordained minister. They love all that stuff out there in America. Anyway, it was too much of a mouthful. So the name Alabama 3 came around. It was a miscarriage of justice case, and it was about 2 white guys and a black guy got accused of rape, and they got lynched, but they were innocent.
Right.
And Alabama 3, sing about kind of... I'm going to say kind of American iconography, but through a glass darkly. We're kind of like a kind of crypto-Marxist situationist band. We're kind of quite political, and a lot of our songs about America are kind of actually quite derisory. which the Americans don't have much of a sense of humour. And when we're out in America and then they realise actually we're not really cool and we're not singing great things about America, we're all taking the fucking piss out of them. It didn't go down too well. But the Sopranos thing happened purely by chance. The band was formed in 95. The first album was Exile on Cold Harbour Lane in 1997. And the first Sopranos episode was 1999.
Right.
So David Chase had an idea for it. It was basically like a spoof of Goodfellas, if you like, you know. And his initial idea was there was going to be a different song at the beginning of every episode. And he was on his way one day to do the pitch. And he heard this song. And he thought, this is fucking great. The lyrics, woke up this morning, get yourself a gun, your mum said he'd be the chosen one. It's like Tony Soprano and everything, you know. So when he went to do the pitch, when he sold them the story, and they're going, okay. And he's going, yeah, and every episode, you know, it's going to have different music, and the first one is going to start with this track. And they heard it, and they went, oh, this track's great. And they said, well, why change it? Why don't we have this for everyone? It's perfect. So he then had to find out who we were. Was surprised we weren't an American band. Right. And by this time, you know, the management got a phone call. Hi, brand new TV company in America, new channel, you know.
HBO, they're not going to be that big.
No, but they come, but you know, every week 50 channels go down, you know, in America. So it's phone call, brand new TV channel. They're doing a spoof of Goodfellas, and they want to use that track that had been on an album that had been out 2 years and hadn't really made much noise.
Right.
And so, of course, it was like, yeah, fucking, you know, here you go, you can have it, boys. And it wasn't for a lot of money either.
Please tell me you got repeat fees.
Sod's Law, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. All I'm committed to say, it's kind of kept the band going. Without that one tune, I mean, there's a lot more bands that have had more hits than us.
Right.
And they burned out years ago. Like, we've got like 18 studio albums. We do an album every year.
Do you know what's mad,
We're
Nick?
still going. What?
I knew you, right, when that aired, right? But I never knew that was you, right? And what was mad was I used to fucking, when it used to come on, boom, 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 get, you know, and it, and I'd be like, fucking hell.
I know, you used to blank me until you found out.
No, I didn't. But I didn't know.
I wanted you.
No, but I didn't know. But honestly, if I'd have known, I'd have been fucking, Nick, how the fuck did you pull it out? How the fuck did you pull that out of the bag, son? Because it's just like such a crazy thing. Like, and I always, because I'm 100% sure I downloaded that song and I thought the Alabama Free, that's so cool. But I never even fucking knew it was you. And that's the mad thing. Obviously found out it was you later on, but at the time, and it was just such a great song. And look, Sopranos was fucking one of the best TV crime shows ever, right? And James Gandolfini, what a fucking amazing actor. Did you ever meet him or go on a set?
I didn't. I think Rob, our lead singer, I think he met him. I met and got on really pally. In fact, this year I was supposed to be going on tour with Uncle Junior.
Yeah.
Dominic Chianese.
Easy for you to say.
He's from Chianese, yeah. But he's got an amazing opera voice.
Right.
I mean, just before lockdown, they had a Sopranos convention in New Jersey.
Wow.
Which is unbelievable, like Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. This vast, like an aircraft hangar. And it was absolutely rammed full of people. But they had 100 actors from the cast that were there.
Wow.
And when we all turned up, you know, as far as we're concerned, these guys, they're the stars and everything like that. But because we'd done the music for it, in their mind, they thought we were much, much bigger and we must be huge in the UK. So they were kind of treating us like we were the stars, which was like, no, we are not worthy. But we got to meet all. He was dead by then, unfortunately, James. But we got to meet the rest of the cast and hung out with them. And we went to the Bada Bing. It really does exist.
Right,
it is a titty bar.
But
so we all went there.
That song and that show, that must have really pushed you. I mean, did you find that your music sales?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember my kids saying to me,
Dad, you're actually pretty cool.
No, my kid's saying, Daddy, none of my mates have heard of your band. And I went, oh, really? I said, well, it's not my band. I'm just one of 8. But so no one's heard of Alabama 3. And I went, really? I said, well, have they heard of the Simpsons? And he went, of course they have. I says, well, tell them we've been on The Simpsons twice, which we have,
Right,
so straight away, then it's like, oh, right, yeah, my dad's and his band have been on
My
the
dad
Simpsons.
and Bart are like that.
Yeah,
my dad
like
and
that. Yeah, exactly.
What was James Gandolfini called in that? Tony Soprano.
Tony Soprano, yeah,
that's it.
Fat Tony. But yeah, well, I mean, we're very grateful for that. As I said, someone got a swimming pool out of it. It wasn't any of us, but it's kept the band going. We still do an album every year. We still tour every year.
Amazing.
We still sell out venues. We're still doing big venues. Despite the fact one of our main singers died 3 years ago, I think the band's getting better and getting stronger. So there's no bad feelings, hard feelings, or someone made fortunes the band didn't make as much as they should have done.
Right.
It's how the deal was, but that's a story of music.
Yeah,
there's so many people that wrote #1 songs, and the management or the record label or so and so managed to cut themselves a good deal, and the band got all out of it. But we're still ticking over. There's sort of some residuals. As I said, it's an 8-piece band. To keep that going on tour these days, it's a tough thing. As I said, a lot of bands that are far more successful than us can't afford to tour. Yet we're still touring, we're still doing the festivals and all of that. And we got new management now. We got Alan McGee.
Oh, wow, you can't go
the
wrong.
guy
He's a
discovered
good guy.
Oasis. And so really, if anything, I think the band is just about to take off. It went a little bit wobbly when the Reverend D. Wayne Love died. And then we had COVID.
You won't fucking speak to me then. You'll be like, oh, Terry, who? What?
Of course I will. Me old Terry, me old Marc. Come on, son.
But with the I mean, I hope that really does happen for you because you deserve it. And I think how long? I mean, you've been doing it for 29 years. The band. I mean, that's a long time. A long time. 3 decades almost.
Yeah.
And with your art and your sculptures and all the other things that you've done, I always remember when you did my one.
I did your head.
Yeah.
When I gave you head.
When you gave me head. Yeah. It was a
when
great
I did
experience.
that, I did a lovely marble bust of you, didn't I?
It's actually quite funny because I went to your Cons to Icons exhibition and I looked around and I just thought, you know what, I'm out of the fucking club game now.
Yeah.
And I wanted something to sort of remember that. And some people will have a painting of themselves, or they'll have a
or like Dave, they'll have a million paintings of themselves.
Or they'll have a picture. They'll actually have a really good, freshly made picture where someone's took a picture of them. And I just thought, you know what, I've never, and because
that's more audacious, having a bust. It's like what the Roman emperors did,
what
isn't it? I know you did. You went, I want mine to be different.
Yeah.
And I want mine with the eyes open.
And I want to look fucking hard.
And I want to look hard. So I thought, I tell you what, instead of bronze, I'll do it in marble. I'll open up the eyes for you. And I made it look just like a classical. And do you know what? I'd forgotten about that until a few years ago. I very rarely look at Facebook, but you put something up on Facebook and there was a picture of it. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm so glad because I hadn't seen it in years. And I used to not take pictures of things, like I've done 100 death masks, and the thing is, a lot of them I have to sign a non-disclosure. So once I've done them, I throw all the pictures away, and there's no point me having them because I can't show them because I'll be offending some family member, So sometimes I think, all the heads I've done, some of them wish I had photos of. So I'm going to need to get you to take a proper picture of that, because I'm quite proud of that one.
I've got to say, Nick, like it's one of them things.
And you got it dirt cheap and all.
I thought it was fucking expensive.
Shut up! I think I charge you 700 quid. I charge like $5,000 now.
There you go. If you want to buy the head bust of me, it's only one of them. It's a 1 of 1.
That's worth. I'm in the National Portrait Gallery now, mate. That head's probably worth 20, 30 grand.
Oh, mate, I'm so happy about that.
So, hold on.
That's the best 700 quid
you ever spent in your life.
Yeah, but I've got to say, when I had it done, I just put it in a cabinet. And what was funny is when people come around the house, they look at it, go, I like your bust. And they look and they go, it's fucking you.
Yeah, take them a minute and they go,
but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some downlighters and light it right up. When people come in and go, why the fuck's that lit up? Mate, My mate is in the fucking National Portrait Gallery, and he'd done that for me. It's a 1-of-1, and people would be going, "How the f*** did you pull that off?"
There you go. Yeah.
I'll just say that Nick saw my talent. He knew that I was going to be the podfather.
I knew you were going to be the podfather. I like that, the podfather of crime and other dodgy miscellanea.
But the one thing I wanted to ask you about with the death masks, who would you say is the most famous death mask you've done?
The most famous one I've done? Well, it depends how you equate fame. I suppose on one level you could argue as I did the president of Biafra, so he's a head of state. I might have been a bit before your time, but Biafra wanted independence from Nigeria, and the British Empire supported Nigeria, not the Biafrans, so 2 million kids starved.
Wow.
But they tried to make it look like it was the Biafrans' fault when it was our fault for siding with Nigeria. And John Lennon actually gave his OBE back because of that. You know, I don't even remember seeing loads of adverts of these little kids with great big bellies that are all dying, starving. Well, we helped do that by you know, these were all Biafrans that were dying,
right?
Because we sided with Nigeria and wouldn't let them have their little slice of the pie, which I think they were entitled to.
Right.
So he'd gone down in history as murdering 2 million people, which he hadn't. Wow. This was the spin. Right. So you could argue on one hand he's probably the most famous person I've done.
Right.
The most famous person I've done you haven't heard of, General Ojukwu was his name. But then I guess, I don't know, I did Malcolm McLaren.
He's cool.
Peter O'Toole.
Yeah, big actor.
Lawrence of Arabia. I did him. Obviously, I did my dad. I did Ronnie Biggs. Ken Russell, the film director. I did him. I did Lord Mogg, that's Jacob's dad, who used to be
Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad.
Jacob Rees-Mogg's daddy, yeah, who used to be the head of the Times and the BBC. I've done hundreds. I've lost count. I've forgotten.
And what was he really famous for?
Oh,
Lord Mogg.
Well, when he was the editor of the Times, Mick Jagger had got busted for a spiff on him or something like that, and they were going to throw him into prison. And
was that in this country, or was that?
Yeah, this is in England.
Country,
yes, this is in England, and they were going to throw him in prison. So, as the editor of the Times, William Rees-Mogg, on the front page, he quoted Alexandra Pope, a very famous quote, "Who breaks a butterfly upon a wheel," which is a metaphor for over the top and extreme unnecessary violence, or you know. And his point was making, you know, break a butterfly on a wheel, you don't send someone to court or to prison for a stiff. And it started a big debate. It was a very famous headline. As a result, Jagger got asked to do a TV show with him and Malcolm Muggeridge, where they're actually asking, this is the old vanguard of the British establishment, saying, "We don't understand you long-haired people and what's it all about, and we're feeling so out of touch." And he became the voice of youth today, and that was all really down to old William Rees-Mogg by doing that. Alexander, you know, kind of almost turned him into a romantic martyr of sorts.
So Lord Mogg,
yeah,
stopped Sir Mick Jagger going to jail. So big up,
yeah, there you go,
Lord Mogg,
big up the Moggs,
R.I.P. and
big up the Moggs, yeah. And in fact, his son Jacob has commissioned me to do. I did his dad's death mask. I did Sir William Rees-Mogg's death mask, and he wants me to do a marble statue of him as well, which I haven't quite got started on. I've got to be honest, mate. I'm a bit all over the place. I feel like I'm spinning loads of plates because I've been making films and documentaries like yourself. Yeah. I've been doing a bit of production. I've been doing some script writing. I've acted in like 5 films. I've done the music for them. And I make rock documentaries as well. So in between that, Alabama 3, the odd death mask kind of here and there, you know, I've kind of more than got my hands full, really.
So if I've only got 6 months to live. And I think, fuck it, I want to be immortalised. I want a marble statue of myself to put in my house to annoy my family on my death.
Yeah.
What would that cost? I know you do me mates rates, but if I just walked, if I was Jacob Rees-Mogg and I
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the going rate, if they want it in marble, carved in marble, you're talking 20 grand, 25 grand. If you wanted it in bronze, about nine or 10 grand, I suppose.
That's fucking cool, isn't it? That is cool. If I've ever got, if I ever make so much money when I can just,
I've already done you.
I know,
in marble,
but I need a figure as well, just a head. You know,
oh,
the
right,
head,
no,
the
mate,
figure.
no, he only wants that. They want the figure. You're talking 45 grand.
That's what I meant. I wanted to, you know.
Oh, yeah, if you want the full figure, life size in marble, 45 grand, mate, at least. That's a year's work.
Would you be able to put like a little
huge
voice
box on it?
A bit huge. Could you put like a voice box in the back so that it could say things?
Yeah, I could have a little sensor, and if someone walks closer, it's like, what are you looking at, you mug? You could do. Could have like a little sensor, you know, and so you walk past, block the light, and it's got a built-in thing in it.
Right. So if anybody who's, you know, superiorly, if there's anybody watching this that either loves me or likes me that has got too much money and they want to treat me that for Christmas, make sure you drop Nick a line.
And if there's anyone who wants their head done by me, I'll give you Tells mates rates.
Yeah, you get Criminal Connection podcast discount.
Yeah, you get Godfather podcast discount.
But Nick, honestly, hearing your story today, talking about your dad, God rest his soul, and your life story. I mean, what a story.
It ain't over yet, so.
But that's what I mean. How old are you now?
I know, at 62.
I mean, you look good for your age. I thought we was the same age, you know.
Well, you know what I say. You're as
old as 35.
You're as old as a woman you feel, mate. You know, as Groucho Marc said. I didn't make that one up for all of you anti-sexist people out there. You know.
And if you
don't shoot a messenger.
And before we wrap this up, Nick, right? We always ask our guests this question, right? If you could impart some advice to any of our people, what would it be?
What would it be?
Yeah, life wisdom, advice, things you've learned. If someone was sitting here now going, Nick, I want to do this, I want to do that. What would you tell? Would you have like a mantra, or would you have like do these things?
Not really. I mean, the only bit of advice, or the only kind of wise words. I don't know how well this is going to go down on your podcast, but the only wise words that were handed down to me from my old man, other than he always said, you know, crime's a mug's game.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's a very, 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 very small percentage you get away with it, and those people are the people you don't hear about, you don't know about. All of these names that you know, the Crays, the Richardsons, even the train robbers, they all got caught. That's how you know their name, you know. So I know they were the top of the game, and they didn't get away with it. They always said to me, if you're going to do anything criminal, it's not worth risking your liberty unless it's something really big. It's a one-off thing that if you got away with it, you're set for life, you know. And visiting in prison, I mean, I've only been locked up once, and I don't know how they do it. The moment, you know, they throw you in and they lock that door and you're helpless, that feeling, I mean, I couldn't cope with that. Really, really, really couldn't. And I never really saw the value in taking a risk where my liberty was at stake. But obviously I'm looking at things through today's eyes, and it's difficult to do crime unless it's compute. You know, today's crime is white collar. You want to earn money, you don't go around beating people up, you don't rob banks, you don't send them blackmail letters, you don't leave a paper trail. You know, you got to be a hacker, you do it all online. It's got to be that way kind of thing. Unless you're importing drugs, you know, or something like that.
There's a lot of people who've actually, you know, said to me, there's a new thing happening because a lot of these banks are online now and through the apps, where people are just like turning on their computer or their phone and all the money's gone. And they're somehow hacking in. I don't know how they're doing it.
Well, I could explain it if you've got all day, but it's quite easy these days, particularly with a lot of people that are not computer savvy. And if they don't have a private VPN, more or less anybody can kind of break into you and hack. And most people have got on their computer or their phone, they'll have all their passwords saved. Everything is synced up. Once they're in your phone or on your laptop, they've got your password for your bank, for everything. It's all in there because most people, they just say, remember password on this device. You go, yeah, because I can't be asked.
So that's another piece of advice. Don't save your fucking passwords.
Don't save your passwords. Change them regularly. But I say the best bit of advice.
Get a private VPN.
Yeah, private VPN.
And go big or go home.
Go big or go home. Yeah, but the best bit of advice my dad gave me, and I never really understood it until I was a lot older, was if you think too much about you become one.
See, I think all our audience will fucking love that. That will be right up there.
It took me so long to understand what it meant, and then it's like, right, yeah. Like 2 fortunes later, and you start thinking to yourself, hold on a minute, what am I doing chasing after this for? I've got more important things I should be getting on with in my life,
But Nick, honestly, mate, I've really enjoyed you having you on as a guest. I think
it's been great to see you, mate. It's been too long.
Well, it's good to actually have a proper chat as well, because we only normally either see each other like passing ships in the night.
Well, film premieres, funerals. And I won't say where else we tend to meet up.
Otherwise, people start turning up.
Family members.
Yeah. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Honestly,
Diamond Geezer. Absolute pleasure. I'll wait for part 2,
mate. There's going to be probably there's going to be a trilogy, mate.
I've just started. This is just a fucking prologue, dude.
This is the hors d'oeuvres before the main course. And then you're going to get the dessert later.
Nice one. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Nick.
Cheers. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Criminal Connection podcast. Nick Reynolds, what a guest, what a legend. Make sure you tune in next week. We've got another amazing guest, and we will see you on the other side.